Hello, everybody, and welcome back to CEN, the greatest tournament in Canadian League of Legends history, where the top Canadian universities duke it out to see who is going to be the winner, the one taking the cup after a fierce League of Legends battle. Today, we have an exciting matchup versus the University of Calgary versus the University of Waterloo Gold team. And yes, these are both teams that, have taken wins. They are in the upper bracket. The winner of today's game will go straight into the playoffs. The loser, don't be too worried for them because they'll still have one more chance to make playoffs after facing the winner from the lower bracket. But yes, today we're going to have an exciting match, so hopefully we stick around. And yes, it's the new League of Legends season. New League of Legends patch. It's after World. We have, so many things going on. A little bit of an esports drought these days. I think, after Worlds has ended, it's been a lot of, please, some League of Legends
just
esports
waiting for
content.
the splits to come back.
Yeah, and I watched like K-Drill's tournament and everything. But for now, this is also a good source for esports. So if you've been, keeping up, what do you think of the meta these days?
I think it's kind of hard to have a read on the meta in pro play, especially when the LCS, the LEC, all the tier 1 leagues aren't playing right now. But in terms of what you see from minor leagues, there's still a lot to be seen, and we will be jumping to draft right about now. And right off the bat, we have a Hui ban on the side of CESU. CESU, for those of you who don't know, is CESU Black is the University of Calgary's team, while Waterloo Warriors Gold is is our team, the University of Waterloo's team. And Warriors open with a Kog'Maw ban. The ADC on the side of CESU is known for playing Kog'Maw a lot, almost 300 games last season.
Yeah, something like that.
and CESU respond with a Vex ban, and Warriors also ban Gwen. CSU is known for liking AP top laners, so Gwen does make sense, and we also see the Vlad ban coming out from CSU.
Yeah, and we noticed that CSU were a team that definitely preferred, AD heavy jungles as well, so definitely Water taking the Gwen out of their hands. Gwen probably definitely one of the most, strongest split pushers, the strongest, champions in the game once you get the late game. And CSU on the other hand, kind of targeting that mid lane AP pool, especially the Warriors mid laner. They definitely play a lot of Vladimir as well. So definitely CSU trying to take that away. And yes, Cassante on B1 is always a solid pick. I think we've been seeing this basically all year, and can't really go wrong, right? Can't really go wrong with this pick.
Cassante, first pick on blue side, is a very safe pick. It's very blindable to pretty much any top laner. There's not many hard counters, and Cassante is is pretty safe laning. Good on lane swaps too, if we do see a lane swap coming in, and yeah, just overall, and scales pretty well too. And Warriors lock in the Corki as a response. Corki is a flex mid and bot because lately Corki bot has been an extremely strong pick. Very aggressive early laner, good at taking towers, just all around one of the strongest ADCs in the game right now, and so bot lane should be a pretty big focus for this game, and yeah, we'll see how. And we'll see how Warriors decide to draft around this Corki. I think Corki does like having more aggressive supports, more aggressive engaged supports, and Warriors decide to pick Talia on R2. And this also is a flex pick as well, a flex pick mid and jungle. And so Warriors, immediately starting off this draft with two fairly strong flex picks is keeping the options open, not sort of telegraphing to CSU what they want to do.
Right, and especially with this patch, we see the advent of, I think Rel went down a little bit in the meta this patch. We see a lot of Swain. We haven't seen anything in Pro yet, but obviously we do see a lot of Swain in solo queue. We see a lot of engaged supports across the board are still pretty decent as well. So I think Waterloo definitely leaving a lot of flexibility on their picks, and we see that the second ban on B2 is going to be the second pick from the side of CSU is going to be Skarner. So we're going to see in a way a very safe value oriented top side from CESU. Obviously, Cassante Skarner, especially paired with a decent, CCAP mid laner, or a good skirmish mid laner, like things like Ari. Oh, okay, they lock the Ziggs, potentially for bot lane, potentially, most likely for bot lane. But definitely, this is a comp we've been seeing a lot, especially in the last Worlds too, right? A lot of teams pick these kind of AP bot lanes, they kind of neutralize the lane, and then they pick hyper carry mid, right? They pick all Smolder is gone basically, so maybe it's not gonna be like a Smolder mid, but they pick a lot of value mid, and they can just safely scale into the late game with stability. So we see that that's the direction that CSU are going, and like we mentioned, Rel recent patch has kind of seen her push down in the meta a little bit, but we see that UW still want to opt for this powerful Corki rel bot lane. If you've never been hit with a Corki with Eon level 1, then you will know, right? You will know the power and the priority this lane can get.
Yeah, and CESU drafting a comp that is very reminiscent of a comp you'd see, teams like Gen G play at Worlds this year. Yeah, Cassante, Skarner, Ziggs were very high presence champions towards the end of this year, and we see Warriors also immediately ban Alistar after the Rel pick, which makes sense. Alistar's counters Rel in lane, can also deny her engage mid to late game with just the headbutt. And we see, the remaining bans have been Aatrox on the side of CESU, and a Sylas ban coming out on Waterloo Gold, and again, Warriors still have a lot of flexibility with their draft. The two flex picks really make it hard for CSU to know what to ban because they know that top lane is still open, obviously, and but they don't know if jungle's picked yet. They don't know if the Tilly is going jungle. They don't know if the Corki's going mid or not, and they settle with the Lissandra ban, and then Warriors respond with the Nar pick into the Cassante. Another very safe champion. Another fairly lane dominant, but it's sort of hard to have a very strong. It's pretty hard to dominate a Cassante in lane because of how tanky he is, especially as Nar. But so we should see a fairly uneventful matchup in the top lane. And with the Talia as well, I think with that global ultimate, I think we should expect a lot of action in the bot lane, especially with such an aggressive pick with Corki. But CSU seem to be responding with that with just incredible passiveness. Picking the Tahm Kench, I'm thinking it's going support with that Ziggs will also mean that it's very hard to kill the Ziggs because not only does Ziggs after first base, after he gets the lost chapter, he can wave clear from half a screen away, but having the Tahm Kench as well, being able to eat the Ziggs in case a Rel flash stuns the Ziggs, or the Ziggs gets hit by a Talia combo, or the Ziggs gets hit by a flash Gnarled. It's CESU opting for just full scaling, full complete, just no aggression at all, and Warriors going for a more balanced, slightly more aggressive comp.
Yeah, and I think the last pick locked in there by CSU is going to be the Yone. So it is a stock standard value meta pick. This is exactly what, like you mentioned, teams like Gen G. I think a lot of Koreans. This was honestly the meta at Worlds, right? Yeah. You pick a safe, like a lane neutralizer in bot lane with Ziggs. Pair that with a Tahm Kench. It's like seeing old Tahm Kench Senna type things, right? And then you pick a really strong value character mid lane. Now Yone is and Yone has been dominating the World's meta, but he is still a very, very strong pick just for the sole reason that he gets prio, but he also scales late game. He has things to say in the split push. He has a lot of he's basically a jack of all trades, especially in such a top heavy meta. And yeah, CSU definitely I was expecting to see I was kind of wondering what they were going to pick last pick because like I mentioned, Smolder is gone. But we definitely wanted to see more value and more prio coming out of that. And yeah, I think Ahri was also an expected pick as well, especially for the side of UW. And that means that Talia is going to be the Talia jungle. And yeah, I think this Ahri versus Yone matchup has been, the mid rotation's been a lot of this, right? Ahri into Yone into, sometimes it was Smolder, but we did see Orianna Nocturne for a while, but mostly I think teams have been realizing that prio and skirmish mid is the number one thing to do. Like if your mid laner's freezing, you're trolling. Like type thing has been happening. So interesting draft from interesting but stock standard draft from both teams. Yeah, I think the meta hasn't moved on too drastically. We're going to see a lot of skirmishes topside.
Yeah, but I do think that the one big concern I have for CSU's draft is sort of unreliable primary CC. A lot of their CC like Skarner ult and Yone ult does kind of like to have a more reliable type of CC go in first so that they can land those important those important spells. And if the Skarner doesn't have flash, like I find it really hard for CESU to find a way to engage onto Warriors gold if they plan on doing that, just because the Skarner E is very easy to dodge. A Tahm Kench W is also very easy to dodge. And of course, the Yone ult can easily be like flashed out of or even walked away from or dashed away from if you're playing Ahri or Nar or Corki. And so if we do have these situations where CESU is coming to objectives second, they're coming to objectives later, and they're not able to establish vision and positioning in River before Pride, and they have to walk into Warriors Gold. I don't really see a way for. Or I find it very hard to imagine how CESU is going to start these fights if they want to, and so I think the main way CESU is going to look to win this game is to, play very stable early. Don't fall behind on gold. Make sure you're CSing while you're taking jungle camps. Trade any objectives if you can, because the early game does look a bit weaker than Warriors Gold's early game, and sort of try to stabilize into that mid game, into those 1-2 item spikes, and then try to get good tempo, establish vision and sort of get positioning inside around these objectives mid to late game, and then make Warriors walk into them, and then see if they can peel off them using the Skarner, using the Kazante, using the Tonkan.
Yeah, and that's why teams sometimes opt to go for the Sejuani.
Yeah.
Like in these kind of comms, just because having a engage button, is often very useful. But yeah, I think CSU, definitely I think the pick to look out for this game is going to be, I think this is true for a lot of matchup these days, but having to see who gets the prio mid, right, is going to be really, I think the Talia pick actually discouraged the, I don't think CSU was going to pick Ari anyways, but I think that Talia pick, potentially being flexed definitely discouraged the Ari as well. And Warriors going for a Silas ban into a Gnar pick is definitely something they were thinking of coming into the second half. And honestly, yeah, like if it kind of goes according to the Warriors, the Warriors plan, they should be winning the grub fights. They move the Rel up early, and like hopefully, like she lands a Q flash, like hopefully they go for the early skirmishes to snowball the game out of control. But yeah, definitely, I think I keep having to say this, but if you are playing a comp like CESU's, like you are definitely the ones who are the ones being like, oh, give Dragon, oh, give Grub, like give this and give that. And we see, definitely in the world's meta as well. This is what we've seen. We've seen like teams like T1 and more. I think we call them like the circus teams who like go hard in the early game. They put their foot on the driver, like on the driver's pedal, and they keep going. And they screw up, they trip, the game kind of go out of control. But if they manage to keep the pressure up, I think definitely that is the more higher difficulty, but high risk, high reward kind of comp to execute.
Yeah, and I think if you're Warriors Gold, I think your main priority in these fights is to kill that Yone.
Yes.
Even though Ziggs is the backline carry, I guess, but until Ziggs goes really late game, the CSU doesn't have that much damage. They don't have much consistent damage. They have 3 tanks and they also have a Ziggs as their AP carry or bot laner, and so I do think that if the Rel is able to land a really nice engage onto the Yone early in the fight, one shot the Yone before the fight, I think Warriors Gold should be winning these fights very easily.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have enough damage to burn through the health bars of Warriors Gold.
Yeah, and that's why I think the Gnar mastery from JDW is actually really important. Gnar is generally into most tank melee matchups is like a default priority winning type of matchup, but I think definitely we've seen players, even in pro, right, even in tier 1 pro, we see that really good Gnar players are leagues apart from the ones that just have to play it. We see in this level 1 they are actually going for a Dragon Vision. This is what teams have been doing also, like a lot, like in these early metas. They've been doing this like Dragon Vision, sneak into jungle, try to get something level 1 kind of plays. But yes, Warriors using their priority, getting a ward down, CSU, but nothing too exciting happening at the moment.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty common setup on teams on red side when they have supports like the Rel or the Rakan who can, use a dash, use a spell to get over that Dragon Wall. But I do think Warriors sort of mess up a bit by showing a bit too early. I think CSU was completely oblivious that they were going for this early game setup, and I really do think that if they just stayed out of vision and waited for Ricky's W cooldown to come back up, they could potentially have gotten a flash or even a kill onto the Tonk bench. But all is well. It's not like they lose anything from this either. And it appears that the Talia Oda will decide to start topside, pathing in the bot on the Talia, while I'm bad, you're awful will be starting bot side, pathing topside. Leaving his Tonken Ziggs bot lane alone, saying, hey, you guys will be fine. Even though they have a very aggressive early game bot lane with the Corki and the Rel, it does a lot of damage and has a lot of kill threat. Hopefully if you're CESU, you're thinking that the Ziggs should be able to wave clear. Worst comes to worst, the Ziggs even has the TP to recover a bad lane state, and so yeah, both junglers should be pretty happy.
Yeah, and that's the merit with these AP bot laners. They take TP, they run out of mana, they just TP back, they get the Lost Chapter, they infinite wave clear, and they're able to hold, especially against high priority lanes such as Corki, and obviously with both teams not opting to go for the lane swap, that's going to be a lot of like nothing that exciting. No crazy skirmish is gonna break out in the early game, which means that this Corki Rel should slowly push out bot lane. And depending on the jungle pathing, we might have to see something different. But we see the Q3 land onto Ahri, unable to flash that early. The flash is invested by both members of CESU, and that looks really close. I actually don't know how Ahri managed to get away there. I don't know how Left Hand Kane managed to get away there, but that's going to be a sharp gank angle by this Garner by I'm Bad or Awful, but that's going to be Left Hand Kane.
Yeah, very good gank setup by Supreme on the Yone. Hits the Q3, allowing for the Skarner to land his E. And somehow Left Hand Kane makes it out alive. It really looked like he was supposed to die there with that red buff taken down as well, but thankfully, if you're supporting Warriors Gold, there's no kill going over mid. He does have to blow his TP early, but overall, Left Hand King should be able to regain control of mid lane and have complete control of this wave due to this just the nature of this matchup early game as Ahri persevered.
So we're going to be entering a state in the game where we're gonna see Left Hand Kane push this wave in. They have the priority. They move the rel up 2 as well. So maybe they do go for if this is what usually happens in a lot of Nard lanes, right? Like if you can get the early push, the early pry, you can go for a dive. And we see that Warriors invest 3 members top, especially with a roam timer on Left Hand Kane to do a little bit of invading, do a little bit of vision on this Skarner. And yeah, if you're this Gnar hasn't been been like the lane destroying, like the early game destroying kind of the top carry that we've but it's Cassante, right? we can give him a break. It's Cassante.
Yeah, not much you can do.
Yeah, not much you can do, but definitely now this means that the game is going to do a little bit of a reset as we see both junglers back off, get their items, and yeah, probably play for grubs.
Yeah, and it actually looks like Supreme had to blow his splash earlier after the mid gank. So that definitely does suck, because I was about to say that if you're a CESU, one of the consolation prizes is that Ahri has no flash, right. So you can look for regank before that flash timer is back up. However, now when Yone also has no flash, it's a lot harder to set that up, especially when this Ahri is about to hit level 6 and have access to the Spear Mark. And also on the side of Warriors Gold, the fact that the gank didn't work out means that the Skarner was actually put behind a bit in turn, and Ona was able to secure a double scuttle on the Talia. And so we should see the Talia be up in levels early game against this Skarner for these early grubs fights, early Drakes fights. And we actually see a kill, first blood going over to Ona onto the Cassante in top lane.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about, right? It's always the top matchup is always volatile. You have Cassante, it is supposed to be a neutralizer, but with the gank, especially from Talia, it's gonna be really hard for him to make it out there alive. Beddoors attempting to get a little bit of a consolation prize, take that jungle away, and he's gonna make it out with the E in time. As Onat hitting 5 now, it's gonna be with 6. Also, again, like I mentioned, one thing to look out for in these type of plays is to always look for the 6 timers. I think here we're gonna see probably an ultless fight from both teams. We see that level 100 Mafia boss is actually going to be getting pincered again. No flash available. The all out is not going to be able to take the Gnar over the wall. And yeah, that is just another kill over to JD LB's. Yeah, Cassante steps a little bit out of line. Ultimates available on both mid laners, but I don't think that Supreme is nearly brave or strong enough to contest this grub fight. And yeah, that's going to be, in a way, an anticlimactic skirmish to determine who gets the first 3 grubs.
Yeah, very good find there by Warriors Gold. JDL Beast, spacing level 100 Mafia boss very well, denying the all out over the wall, making sure that if the Cassante ever does open on the Gnar, he turn mega and CC the Cassante against the wall. But now Embo has his flash force out. Burning her vent, but does level up and should be able to walk out of this one alive.
Yeah, a little bit of almost careless play there, just doubling straight into the Tahm Kench W. The Ignite is invested, but that means that Corki has to blow his flash. Teleport is available, so it's not going to be end of the world for this Corki. But definitely, you know, if you're getting advantages on one side of the map, you have to make sure there's no disaster that happens on the other side. And yeah, right there, Supreme showing the power of this Yone. You know, even if that matchup is you know, like Ari trade favored in a way, you always have to remember that if Yone does manage to stick on you, that charm goes wide, then yeah, left-hand Kane blows the ultimate. Fortunately for Warriors, nothing too crucial for them unless there gives me, you know, too much dragon presence. But at the end of the day, if they got grubs for free, so now a dragon, getting dragon would be, you know, a bonus. But if they give it over to CESU, then you know it's a whatever, it's a trade.
And look at this, and look at the Skarner and Warriors bot side jungle taking away the wolves and the Grom. While the Skarner's entire bot side jungle is up as well, should put the Skarner, you know, should sort of catch up the Skarner in terms of XP with the Tilia, and that's very smart on the side of CSU. And they might even look for a bot gank onto the Corki who has no flash, but it will get sniffed out by Warriors Gold, and they should back off. And crucially earlier, Supreme was able to force out the Ari ult, and so, you know, if I'm CSU, I'm calling for ganks mid lane, because even though the Ari has flash, and the Impale being used onto the Rel.
And it's going to be the Impale used on the Rel, but at the end of the day, Talia comes in, charm goes wide, Potato Soul is just murdered by the Corki. That's going to be a double kill picked up, as Ari rushing forward. I don't think charm is available just yet. But yeah, the charm goes through, lands, the ult is invested to clear the wave. That's going to be Ryan Jigglypuff barely living on 1 HP, getting the revenge kill onto Corki. It almost looks like a disaster. Maybe it is a disaster, but Onat squeezing out the last of his mana, pulls off the dive. But yeah, what happened there?
Yeah, that was a crazy fight. The Skarner wanted to look on the Rel, wanted to try and get a quick pick onto the Rel, but unfortunately it didn't look like CESU Balling was in a position to follow up on it. Then, you know, the flash charm completely misses from left-hand Kane, but just the sheer damage output from the Corki this early in the game is enough to secure a kill onto the Skarner and onto the Rel. Also because Onat, you know, with a very timely ultimate, with a very timely Weaver's Wall, is able to come into the fight, you know, stun the Skarner, you know, get a bunch of damage onto the Tahm Kench, and just that, and the way Ryan Jigglypuff survived for so long. Kane almost died, Onat almost died, Ambo died to minions. Like, very eventful fight, but overall Warriors Gold come out on top with 3 kills to 1.
Yeah, that's what we call, you know, Ryan Jigglypuff, you know, NT, right? I think definitely that play could have gone a lot worse for CESU. I can't say that's going to be a good play for them, but, you know, yeah, Ryan Jigglypuff making the best of a bad situation. And yeah, CESU now trying to go for this dragon. I don't know if this is greedy. I don't know if this is a valid fight. But yeah, all the members of UW Gold slowly collapsing, and that's going to be a 2-man knockup into the stun. Onat getting that huge skill. That's going to be a Yone jumping straight in with the ultimate. No E popped yet. That's going to be Ambo going down the Skarner. This Talia is shut down, but the charm lands onto Ziggs. It's going to be 3 members of U Waterloo versus 1. Yone Supreme manages to take down Ambo with him. But again, that is, you know, NT. That was a good attempt by Supreme to get that, to make the best of a worse situation. But that's still going to be so many kills secured for Waterloo, and ultimately the Dragon presents, you know, denied by them as well.
Yeah, and another 1v1 going on in the top lane, but we get a pause in the middle of it. You know, not a great pause timing for these top laners in the middle of a, you know, in the middle of a battle to the death. But I mean, Supreme just did all he could there. You know, lands an amazing Yone ult on two players, and even gets 2 kills, but ultimately is still 3 for 2 for Warriors Gold.
Yeah.
CSU Black, especially with the composition, especially with the Ziggs, with the early game Ziggs, just doesn't have enough damage to really take these fights. And I think they were, and I'm not sure what they were thinking going for that dragon. They must have assumed that Onat was pathing top and wouldn't be bottling to respond, or they were thinking that they would try and sneak the dragon, and if you know if and we're back in game, and JDLB's forced to flash away. Mafia Boss responds with the flash, but misses. Q2 goes wide as well, but JDLB's looking for a trade kill, and it ends up being 1 for 1.
Yeah, and that was a messy fight there. You know, the all-out invested from the Cassante, and a few Qs going wide. Definitely not as clean as level 100 Mafia Boss, you know, hoped for to get out of that fight. But that is JDLB's gonna go down. And yeah, that was a 0-2 Cassante, so
Overall, still slightly better for level 100 Mafia boss, just because there's probably more kill pressure onto the Nun, not the both flashless, with the Skarner rather than Talia, but and also just because his wave is pushing back in, and the TP will be forced out of JDL Beast as Onat looks to collect six grubs for his team, and
yep.
6 grubs is very important in a Nar versus Cassante matchup, just because the Nar, being the ranged top laner into a melee top laner, should have a lot of chances to hit this turret and get these turret platings, and especially when this Nar is ahead in items and ahead in gold, we should see JDL Beast reaping these benefits of these 6 grubs and looking to extend his gold lead in the top side through these turret platings.
Yep, and Supreme's gotta watch out. I don't know if he saw Ricky, but they might have a collapse onto him. The Weaver's Wall coming down over top. Yone ultimate is not available just yet. The flash is gonna be invested over the wall. The Q3 will get him out to safety towards his team, but that might be the dragon, or at least the river control for you, Waterloo. That is that's what you gotta watch out for, especially if you're against a Talia jungle with the Weaver's Wall. So much follow-up and so much CC available on the side of UW Gold. We talked about how important these early skirmishes are, and and Warriors seem to be getting consistently ahead. And like we mentioned, the first dragon going over to them, 6 dragons and a grub, right? Like, this is in a way what your Warriors
6
wanted.
grubs and a dragon.
Oh, and a dragon, yes, exactly. Wanted to do all this time. But yeah, that's they've got to be feeling pretty good about themselves at this point.
And Warriors Gold should be pretty happy being able to get the Yone's Flash, who is, as I said, probably the most important player on this CESU's team comp. Without investing anything, they didn't use any ults, they didn't use any flashes, and just getting that Yone Flash just without any no strings attached must feel really good. As CSU look to might be thinking about making a play onto JDL Beast in the top lane, but in the Mega now it doesn't seem that they'll have the time to make this play, and I'm bad. Your Awful seems to be extremely caught out, not realizing that left hand Kate is flanking behind him, and left hand Kate might be looking for more. He uses Spear Rush, gets hit by the Yone Q3.
But yeah, and CSU playing with fire there and gets burnt. They spend a little bit too much time trying to orchestrate that dive. And like you mentioned, the Mega Gnar, such a good dissuader of these dives. The amount of stats you get, the amount of things that you can do in that form is just insane. And yeah, it's going to be another kill onto a flashless Cassante. And this is disaster for CSU. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, gold leads extended to 3K at 14 minutes. I honestly thought it'd be more with, how in control we feel. But I think we shouldn't be disillusioned by the gold lead. It feels a lot worse than a 3.5 thousand gold lead because of how in control Warriors Gold is of this game. All the proactive plays are being initiated by Warriors Gold, and any play that CSU makes is immediately denied or neutralized by a flash or a nifty escape,
right?
Or a trade kill, and but as I say that, I might have jinxed it. Supreme finds a solo kill onto left hand Kane, maybe potentially that being a 1v2 as well.
Yeah, speaking of being the most important player on this team, Supreme really showing that this game is on his back, right? This is his game to win. If he needs to, if Calgary needs a W, he's gonna be the one to do it. As I'm bad, your worst, Awful taking a extended fight, but gonna be bailed out by the Tom Kench ultimate there. But yeah, I don't even know how Supreme pulled that off.
Yeah, I'm very. I mean, I don't think Left Hand Kane had ult because he used the Spear Rush in the fight before, so he must have been caught by a Yone combo like that. But I think he was able to burst through the entirety of Left Hand Kane's health bar. Even with the Rel being there to sort of ward him off. Very impressive by Supreme, and but I think the Skarner death was very unnecessary. The Supreme was way too low to continue the fight, and I'm bad. Your Awful was essentially 1v2ing the Talia and Rel very close to the mid turret. So not sure what the Skarner was thinking there, but overall, getting more gold onto this Yone is definitely all you can hope for on the side of CESU, because even though at this point, especially with this gold lead, you should be favoring Warriors Gold in these team fights. If Supreme is able to land a crazy wombo combo in combination with the Skarner ult, or in combination with some miracle crazy Tom Kench W, and he's able to hit the backline carries of Talia, Ari, and Corki, you know, we can easily see CESU win some of these team fights just purely off the backs of this Yone.
Yeah, and look
this
at that
accelerated
trade.
damage,
Yeah, look at that trade. The Blade of Yone with Blade of the Ruin King is something that never can be written out. But Ambo very precariously low on mana, and a lot of people just waiting around to dive him. The teleport is going to come through for left-hand Kane, but that's going to be a little bit too little, too late. Yeah, I'm bad you're worth sidestepping that charm as well. He wants the hard steel procs. He wants to get a little bit more pressure onto this Ahri. But yeah, on both, yeah, CSU, Calgary look for a good dive ankle onto a Corki that is maybe overstayed his welcome by a little bit. Are they going to go for this again?
Spear Rush is used, charm hits, I'm bad you are awful, and he will just fall to the turret. CSU maybe not thinking that, you know, the Ahri ult would come back off cooldown so early. Although I think it has been a while since, you know, Kane has used the Ahri ult, so I'm not sure. Maybe they were just thinking about, you know, getting the Ahri ult out, but you know, without an actual wave, with only one minion pushing in the turret, I don't see many angles in which, you know, they're able to get that Ahri ult for free and not lose a flash or not lose any, not concede any kills. The Yone ult ends up going wide.
Hopefully doesn't knock it. The ship is not going to land as well, and now it's going to be level 100 Mafia in a 1v3 situation, but you cannot ever count a Gasante that's gone all out of the fight. Supreme is going to take it really low. JDL Beast is getting the passive stacks. The Q flash from Rel is going to go wide, but you got to remember, Yone is like a boomerang. He always comes back. And Ombo picking another kill onto Supreme. I mean, at the end of that messy exchange, it's going to be UW Gold coming out on top once again with a minute but definite win. But Onat lands a huge combo. That's going to be two immediately. The bot lane of CSU are deleted from existence as Waterloo are looking to get another kill on the board. And this Talia is going crazy. Everybody on Waterloo seems to be so good at taking these coordinated team fights in these skirmishes. They turn on a dime with these crucial team fight abilities, and they seem to extend their lead further. They're just dropping Rift Herald on top as well.
Amazing knock by Onat out of vision, catching both bot laners on CSU. They use the Herald to secure the top tier 2, and that should be a huge gold injection into JDLB's pockets. And I like how you mentioned how coordinated Warriors Gold feels in these fights. It seems that they're all looking for the same things. They're all looking for the same, you know, for the same spells connecting and, you know, playing off each other. And I do think that is something that CSU has not shown this game yet. They seem very uncoordinated in a lot of these plays. Like early in that play, after Supreme missed his ult, he was looking to disengage the fight, but then level 100 Mafia boss decided to go in and all out 1v3. And granted, he does get Onat's flash, and you know it is an all out Cassante, even though he's, you know, 1-3. He was 1-3. He was actually fighting pretty well, but and maybe if Supreme stayed there, they maybe could have gotten a kill or two, but. The fact is, Supreme seemed to want to call off the play while level 100 Mafia boss wanted to keep going, and sort of CSU looks like they're in just complete disarray, and sort of, and so a lot of these plays just aren't working simply because, you know, the members of CSU are looking to do different things. While Warriors Gold, they seem a lot more coordinated, and you know, their map movements are all together. They all play for the same towers or objectives or jungle camps. They're all supporting Onat when he's invading, and that should be, and that is, you know, I think a huge reason as to why Warriors Gold has come out to a 7,500 gold lead.
Right.
19 minutes into the game.
Yeah, and now they're looking to do, you know, the proper macro play. They want to take the steps to make sure that everything. Ouch! That missile looked like it hurt. They're setting up this mid dive. They want to get this mid tier 1. That is the first part in their plan to absolute domination of this game. Onat. 4 kills on the board. Left hand Kane, 2 kills on the board is Corki. So powerful. The Weaver wall coming over top. Tomcat manages to get the eat onto Ziggs. That's not going to be enough to save his own life. However, the members of CESU look to make a revenge play. They're looking to Skarner, to kidnap. Everything seems to be going perfectly good for Waterloo. Turns almost look like they have tabled, you know, by the Yone, landing that 4-man ult, but the stat, the amount of money you Warrior can just slap CSU with right now is too much. You know, even though that was a great attempt by the Yone, by the re-engage, by the Skarner, it's unfortunately a little bit too late.
Yeah, I think CSU not expecting that play since the Mountain Drake is up. They were probably, you know, without vision anywhere in the jungle or in the river, they were probably expecting Warriors Gold to be on the Dragon, but so they were probably definitely surprised seeing the Weaver's wall come out from topside. And the fight starts off very good for Warriors. You know, they immediately get 2 kills without, you know, after just expending some ultimates and flash. And thankfully, the only person hit by the Impale was the Ahri, who still had 2 charges in the Sphere Dash. But Supreme finds an amazing, you know, almost as good as an ult as you could hope for, hitting 3 members on Warriors Gold, but they simply just aren't strong enough. The gold lead is far too large to overcome, and Supreme gets 1 kill, but he instantly dies after the ultimate. He instantly falls to Ambo. Supreme once again looking for a play mid lane, trying to catch Ambo out, but unfortunately he will be punished. Potato Soul also trying to save Supreme, but unfortunately he will die, and maybe Potato Soul will die for his mid laner sins too.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that CESU look a little bit coordinated right now, and I think that definitely was the case there too. The Tom Kench looking a little bit hesitant on what he should do, you know, against the Yone. Yeah, and everybody on you Warriors, the Warriors Gold, they're so powerful. The gold lead has ballooned to over 10k with this turret falling. That's gonna be going to almost 12k. And yeah, just look at the items on this Corki. Like this Yone, it was almost a miracle. It's a miracle that he managed to almost kill him even. But yeah, the amount of utility that's pouring in over top from Warriors. They're going to simultaneously pressure mid. They're going to simultaneously pressure top. The Yone ult is going to go wide. The Rel ult is going to be invested. Onat is going to be able to crawl out. That is a heartbreaker for CSU. Getting that shutdown on the Talia would have been, you know, perhaps one thing they could do, you know, to get back into the game. But at the end of the day, it's going to be everything falling for the side of CSU. Yeah, they're not even going to try and play this one out. They know this is over.
Yeah, and once again, about that, like, uncoordination, you know, the Talia is 1 HP, you know, kind of overextending, you know, being a bit too ambitious, trying to get that Ziggs kill, you know, using the ultimate to get into CESU's base,
Right.
but then, and the Tonkinch is able to get the Talia very low, but then as Supreme is looking to ult onto Onat, the Tonkinch ends up eating the Talia.
Right.
And after the Tonkinch spits out Onat, Supreme is not able to follow up on that because the Tonkinch ult did not do enough damage to kill the Talia, and not only does Supreme die, but Onat ends up getting out of that alive.
Right, and you can see the coordination
Yeah.
of Wario as Ricky flashes over, as it jumps over the wall with the Rel, you know, to bail
with
out
the
the
locket
Talia. Right,
to,
exactly.
you know, to save the Talia, and you know, if you're Supreme in that situation, you must be pretty upset with, you know, your support. And you know, I know that's happened to me multiple times when I play with the Tonkinch, but you know, it's a best of 3. That's just game 1, and I think CSU, what they really have to do is they really have to, you know, take this opportunity, take this break to take a mental reset and sort of refocus, calm down, and just, you know, forget about game 1, and because they looked incredibly disorganized game 1 compared to Warriors Gold, and just forget about it, and, you know, go back to how they used to playing, and just, you know, just play solidly, you know, to communicate, talk with each other, and just make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, and especially I think that reflecting the team comp as well. We talked about how if CESU want to really, you know, stably end the game, stably get a lead, they have to be okay with giving some of the objectives. But, you know, you got to remember in these types of games that, you know, you can't just give everything, right? You can't just give all the drags. You can't just give all the grubs over. You still have to build leads in your lanes, or you still have, you know, like, to have the game at a point where it's so not just so Jover, you know, that, you know, every lane is going to be pushed in. And in that game, we did see, you know, actually Supreme, you know, put on a really good performance from the Yone. He had those 1v3s. He had that, like, level 3 play with the Skarner, you know, to get the prio on Ahri early. But unfortunately, you know, the things that happened, I think, near top side, you know, really snowballed the game out of control. And not the, and I think, you know, especially with how Corki was left alone in the lane, but he was just so powerful that he's consistently built, you know, pressure. He was consistently allowed to grow versus the Ziggs as well. And the Ziggs pick, you know, even if it's supposed to be a neutralizer, I don't think Ziggs saw a lot of play action that game either. So, you know, there were, in a way, CSU were getting choked out of the map, you know, top and bottom, which is, you know, even if you're playing a value comp, you cannot let yourself get, you know, out-handsed and out-pushed in every lane.
Yeah, and I think that CSU, like, a lot of the plays they were going for did look good, you know, in theory, but I think it just came down to execution and coordination that really made it fail. And so if you're CSU, you can't be too mad about your own decision making, and that's generally a good sign, because that means going into game 2, all you have to do is, you know, focus on, make sure your mechanics are on point, make sure you're all on the same page, you know how to sequence your spells, how to change your CC, and so, you know, and the series isn't over. It's a best of 3. There's still 1 or 2 more games.
And speaking of the series not being over, we're going to get straight into the next champs leg. We see the bans have been the same, more or less the same. The Kog'Maw, obviously, if somebody on your enemy team has played 292 games of Kog'Maw, then that is probably a good idea to ban it. I think CSU have the same idea last game as well. Target the mid pool, make sure that there's no super carry. Oh, but they do adapt with the Corki. I think that's a decently smart play. If they opt to go for a safe bot lane again, like eliminating such a strong prio pick like Corki, could work out for them. And they actually ban the entire bot lane that was played from Waterloo last game.
Yeah, and Warriors Gold, keeping the Gwen and Kog'Maw bans, but opting to ban the Braum this time. Last game, if you recall, CESU was the one who banned Braum on blue side. But this time, Warriors decide to take the ban on blue side. This probably indicates that they're looking to play, a very aggressive support, an engaged support, and with the Lux being locked in, it is a flex support and potentially mid. Obviously, traditionally, Lux is more of a support, especially when you compare it with something like Caitlyn. Caitlyn Lux being a very strong bot lane combo, but with the Braum ban, it does sort of, it makes me want to raise my eyebrows and think, what if they're still looking for engaged support, and they might actually be thinking about putting the Lux mid.
Right, and we see a completely different response from CSU at this point. They're going to go for the Ivern, actually, which, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of teams I've seen historically do this. You put the jungler on Ivern, you add a lot more stability to the skirmishes, but you especially add a lot more stability to your carries. I think last game, Supreme seems like if you're still going to pick something like Yone mid, Ivern adds a lot of value to that. If you're going to play in hyper carry ADC, if Warriors choose to play a lot of engage on top of like they ban out the Braum, they play a lot of engage, then you can do something like Xayah as well, and Ivern is a very good anti-engage kind of character as well, especially with Daisy. That is possibly the most annoying ultimate in the game.
Yeah.
To
face
face
it at 65.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
So
with the Ivern pick, I think they are looking to play around the ADC or even potentially pick an APC bot, like they did last game, and then pick an ADC mid, like pick Tristana mid. Because Supreme has been doing very well. He did very well in the first game, so they might be thinking about either putting them on a very aggressive melee mid laner, like a Kali or Silas, and have the Ivern pair with that, so that he's able to land the damage on the E with the help of his mid laner, or even play a Tristana comp, a Tristana Ivern comp, which we have seen at Worlds, and Warriors respond with Tahm Kench Cho'Gath. Definitely definitely picks I wasn't expecting. I'm not really sure what Warriors are going for here.
They're cooking. They're cooking a little bit.
Yeah, it also makes me question the Braum blue side ban, but after picking Tahm Kench, because I don't think Braum is that good into Tahm Kench, but we'll see what Warriors are planning to do this game. We do have confirmation though that the Lux will be going mid, and I see the Cassandra being hovered by CSU. Just another very stiff pick for level 100 Mafia boss. He was also hovering the Olaf, and I did actually like the Olaf in this comp because if it was gonna be picked, because Olaf is amazing with Ivern. He just runs in there with the E and slows everyone. He also he can't get when he pops the Ragnarok, he can't get CC'd by Lux, Cho'Gath, or Tahm Kench. But we will see the Cassandra come out a much more safe pick, because once again, if the Olaf does somehow fall behind in lane due to high jungle presence in top lane or high support presence in top lane due to ganks, the Olaf will quickly become useless in these team fights and in these skirmishes. And as we move on to the second ban phase, we see CESU banning out the Graves, while Warriors ban out the Ashe.
Yeah, and I like the Graves ban, especially because this Warriors comp definitely might opt for like a hyper carry jungle, and we see that CSU, if they ban out the Viego, they're really saying that we don't want Onat on a hyper carry jungle, surrounded by Lux and Tahm Kench and Cho'Gath. One thing that I will say about Warriors is I have seen like Cho'Gath bot lane being sometimes played, I that could be a cook they do, maybe they go for a Tahm Kench Cho'Gath bot lane, or they like do a Lux Tahm Kench bot lane and send the Cho'Gath top, and then pick a carry mid lane and a carry jungle. And so there's a lot of flexibility, for options for Waterloo. We don't know how hard they're going to be cooking, but CSU are just saying, okay, you know what? There's two fat guys. There's really big guys on the enemy team. Just play the Vayne, right? Just secure the identity, and a Vayne by itself could be a little bit of a volatile pick, but especially if Ivern adds a little bit of stability there, then I can see a world where that is going to be a useful pick, as a Smolder and Vex are going to be the picks locked for Waterloo.
Yeah, Warriors opting for a a very long range front to back comp with the Smolder and the Lux, or a very obvious poke comp, I think. Actually, it's a bit confusing trying to figure out what kind of direction Warriors are going for, but
Yeah.
CSU going for a very traditional front to back comp. I will say though that the Vayne pick on R4 seems very ambitious. Picking it when you don't know who the ADC or mid laner is, could have been pretty bad, and especially if they pick long range mid laners and strong early game ADCs. That Vayne pick could have been bad. Into the Smolder though, I don't think into the Smolder Tonk Pinch, I don't think that Vayne would have a too terrible time surviving in lane, because one of Vayne's weaknesses is early game. When we see the R5 pick, the pick that they saved for the mid laner, ends up being the Aurelia into the Vex.
Into the Vex, you have to remember that Aurelia does like get the upper hand in a lot of versus mage matchups, obviously, but into a Vex, that is a really I think difficult matchup, actually one of the more difficult matchups for Aurelia, especially if it's a pick. You pick to get early prio and early split push pressure. Oh, sorry, late game split push pressure. Like, Vex is still really tricky to deal with, right? Like, every dash you do, you get the passive proc, you get the fear back. If Aurelia tries to engage on you, you just fear her, run away. Come out on top in these trades. And I think one more thing I want to mention from the side of CSU is that their arms are really short.
Yeah.
Like, they have no range. They have engage now in the form of Nautilus. They do have the primary engage, which is good to see, especially if you have low range, but you still have to remember that they have to play those fights so much more tighter than Waterloo has to, in a way.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting a more traditional mage mid, especially because CSU is heavily lacking in magic damage. The entirely physical damage, or true damage on the side of all out Cassante W and Vayne W, but their only source of AP damage really is the Nautilus and the Ivern, which isn't a lot of damage at all, and especially when you have two beefy tanks, the Cho'Gath and the Tonkinch, they'll be very happy just stacking armor the entire game, and while of course Vayne does have the silver bolts, stacking armor won't really do much against her. Still, especially with this very short range, usually when you play these short range comps, you're looking for very quick, snappy fights, but just with the health bars on UW on the side of Warriors Gold, and the fact that there's no mixed damage on the side of CESU, I have to imagine the fights seem to if everything's even by mid game and especially late game when the Smolder has scaled up, the fights must be really hard for CSU, because once again, Warriors with that range advantage, especially with the Lux, they can just constantly look for poke, fish for Cho'Gath Qs, fish for Vex Spheres, fish for Lux roots, and and the second they hit a target, they can just use a bunch of very non-committal abilities on that target, like even if they end up catching a Nautilus with a Lux Q, they can just use the Lux ult on a very short cooldown. They can just poke with a Smolder ult, Smolder W, Smolder Q, and just slowly chunk out CESU in these standoffs at these objectives. And so, if you're CESU, especially with this Aurelia pick, who's very strong early game, especially with the Ivern, Aurelia works really well with Ivern in these early skirmishes. You really want to be looking for a very strong early game, looking for these strong fights early game, and looking to extend this lead in order to keep up with the scaling that Warriors Gold has.
Yeah, I think definitely one thing I need to see is Aurelia needs to destroy side lane.
Yeah.
Especially come mid game, where there's going to be realistically the match is going to come out from Vex and Cho'Gath. Aurelia need to really put a lot of pressure on the side lane. And yeah, like you mentioned, non-committal is the name of the game for you, Waterloo. Vayne is good at killing Cho'Gath, but only if you can keep hitting him, right? And the thing is, there's a Vex ult, there's a Lux Q. Even if she manages to roll in for a good angle, Tompkins still has the Devourer as well. So it's gonna be really tricky for, I think, CES. That's why they picked the Ivern, I guess, to kind of add more insurance there. But definitely a high risk comp. I think this time, more on the side of CES. And one thing I'm actually interested in the side of Warriors, I think last game I was talking a lot about top matchup. This game is definitely, I think, looking more towards the mid matchup.
Yeah.
How good are the trades gonna be realistically? I think in lane against Aurelia, I think Vex is definitely favored to win the short trades, even if not all in. But yeah, I think definitely how the health bars are looking in the crucial fights. Can you make use of the Ivern to synergize with the Aurelia? To come out on top during these fights. because this bot lane is, if I'm Waterloo, I'm not gonna do anything this game. I'm just gonna let Smolder scale up.
And another very concerning part about CESU's comp is that they picked Nautilus, which is a single target CC support instead of something like the Rel. And I think a big problem with that is that when you have single target, skill shot CC on the side of as engage on the in the form of the Ivern in the form of the Ivern Q and the Nautilus hook, it's very easily blocked by a Cho'Gath who's going to increase in size over the game. And so you're going to find a very hard time getting onto the Smolder, who will probably be the priority target in these fights, or the Vex. And and also more importantly, the Nautilus is good for point and click CC, but they have but they picked it into Tom Kanchu, and so if the Nautilus is ever able to find a surprise flash out onto the Smolder, the Tom Kanchu can very easily just devour the Smolder, and the engage is completely nullified. And so and I think all of this just makes it so much more important that CSU wins these early games, and they're able to, instead of banking on trying to win these mid to late game team 5v5 team fights, they should try and get this Aurelia ahead, maybe even get this Cassandra ahead, and especially make sure the Vayne doesn't fall behind, and try to play through these side lanes and try to beat Warriors Gold like that, because team fights seem very hard to play on the side of CESU.
Yeah, this is kind of like the exact opposite of last game in a way, where it was CSU on the value picks and Warriors, with they gotta twist every limb, to win the fights. And yeah, like Aurelia, Vayne, Cassante, even they're champions that require mastery, for them to be viable and competitive. And yeah, we have to see how much potential the CSU has to draw out, but this is where they gotta prove it. Basically, they have to put their foot on the accelerator and not let go, as we are going to load straight into game 2.
Oh, and I just realized it's actually a Cho'Gath jungle and a Smolder top. Yeah, I didn't consider the fact that that the Cho'Gath would be the jungler in draft. I completely overlooked that. And I mean, and it actually looks to be a Ambo on Lux, so they might be playing a Lux Tom Kench bot lane.
Yeah, I mentioned there could be a lot of cook, especially with this Cho'Gath pick, but yeah, Warriors are definitely going to pull out something, and yeah, they're casually, 5-man top, 5-man bot.
Both teams, 5 stacking in a lane, just opposite lanes, so there won't be any clashes in this early game. Potentially, they might be even looking to lane swap or even, split the map with Ivern, but then again, we could easily just see, both teams return to their own jugglers and just have, regular pathings. I will say though, on the side of Warriors Gold, now that you do see this, I mean, putting the Smolder top, it has a lot of positives. One being that as long as JDL plays it right, he shouldn't have any dying threat into the Cassante.
Might run straight into the Aurelia, but the rest of Warriors are there to bail him out of any danger.
Yeah, and I think, if you're CSU, honestly, the Lux pick is very annoying for the Vayne. Just because Vayne has this weak early game, and so like if left hand Kane with this with this prio and pressure mid that you should have, you should be able to push in the what looks like to be the Cassante actually, who's swapping mid lane.
Yeah,
you should be able to push in the Cassante and potentially set up some very easy dives onto the Vayne. If the Vayne ever takes bad trades or gets hit by too many Luxies and falls too low on HP, but I guess the saving grace in this case for CSU Black is the fact that Cho'Gath is a very weak early game jungler, and so there shouldn't be any early dives being threatened. So yeah, we'll see how well this Vayne scales into the mid to late game, and the Ivern is actually looking for an early invade onto the Cho'Gath, potentially stealing away the red buff with the smite, and maybe even looking for an early gank bot lane. The only issue though is this does sort of make Ivern lose a lot of tempo on his camps, especially his topside camps.
Right.
Sorry, especially his bot side camps, but because he hasn't been on mark. But
yeah. That wave is looking a little bit too big.
Yeah. So no gank opportunities met yet for the Ivern. Supreme, going top is getting prio onto JDLBs, who's the Smolder is so weak early game, even though it's a range versus melee matchup. Even with the grasp, the Q poke doesn't really do anything to Supreme, especially because he's healing up with the Q on the minions, and we should. what lane do you think would have the most action this game? Because these are we were not anticipating these lanes going coming out of the draft. And so,
Yeah.
So Jamin, what do you think? What do you think we should be panning towards?
I mean, I think we should definitely be panning towards top at this point because of how aggressive early it can be. But, maybe I spoke wrong. Maybe we should be looking bot because that early gank from the Cho'Gath manages to land so much damage onto Potato Soul, but he's gonna be inching out with barely his life, and he actually gets a kill as well. Everybody on the CSU bot lane is taken so low. But yeah, Onat goes down.
A bit of a mistake by Potato Soul not flashing the initial content W, but JDLB's knows he's going to die to the Zyber game, so just tries to get as many stacks as he can. And, CSU coming onto a great, starting off with coming out to a great start at the beginning of the game, getting these 2 early kills. Although the Vayne does look like he's in a bit of trouble. He might be losing this big cannon wave due to the pressure from this Lux ADC of all things. But and Potato Soul will just look to soak this XP, but he might be punished for it.
Yeah, and I think Vayne was actually trying to fake the back there to bait a dive, and it actually goes perfectly according to plan. He's going to be able to pick up all the XP there as well. And yeah, the regank went through the Aurelia stint into the infinite dashes. That's going to be another kill over to Supreme. And we talked about how important this early game was for CESU, and they're just demonstrating that they are not here to play around. Ouch! Well, maybe play around a little bit as Ambo is getting hunted down by the Vayne. That's going to be a kill over, finally to this Vayne and not the Nautilus. But yeah, CSU are really looking to punish the Smolder Pit.
I definitely think the decision making on the side of Warriors Gold is a lot more rough this game compared to last game. JDLB's doing a Hashenshin TP, just dying and immediately TPing back to lane and dying to a regain. It definitely feels really bad for the Smolder, and now he's getting frozen on it against the Aurelia. And it's already down
back
level.
mid.
Yeah. And actually, they end up swapping back mid, and this could actually be this should be pretty good for JDLB's. Being able to get matched up against the Cassante. Although, I would be interested in seeing if CSU swaps back themselves. Because they do seem to want to match the Aurelia into the Smolder. Making sure that there's always kill pressure onto the Smolder if JDLB steps up too far, but it looks like Supreme will be staying top, and he will be punished for it.
Ooh, yeah, and they were going for the freaks. I think Aurelia was getting a little bit too. I think Supreme was getting a little bit too used to just beating on a helpless little Smolder that he kind of overlooked the possibility of a gank, and especially a Vex is no pushover, especially if you're putting Aurelia into it. Yeah, so that's going to be a little breath of fresh air for the side of Water. That flash is instant to get away from the Nautilus hook. Yeah, I'm bad, you're awful going for, a Snitter Timer bot gank, but that's going to be the flash blown from Ricky. But that means Onat is actually also going to get the Grubs topside.
Cho'Gath actually able to get, sneak all 3 Grubs without his, without a top lane, without anyone in top lane. I'm hesitant to say without a top laner because at this point I don't know who's the top laner, but because of how much swapping they've been doing. But and I think the initial if we go back to the initial attempt by a Warriors Black in the gank bot lane after Ricky lands the Tom Kench W onto the Nautilus. Actually, we don't have time for that because Ryan Jigglypuff is taken out by the Tom Kench. Even though I'm bad, you're awful is.
Oh my
here
god,
to
this
help.
Tom Kench is immortal!
This fight is so close.
Yeah, this Tom Kench looks like he's so low, but first of all, Nautilus Ivern just doesn't do that much damage. Okay, the Luxie is gonna go wide. Now it's anyone's game. The Aftershock is proc, and it looks like Potato Soul is gonna chase down, getting down onto the Lux, but Potato Soul has no mana. Like I mentioned, this Tom Kench is freaking immortal, as Ricky is going to be standing at the time. I really don't know how that happened. Hambo was at full HP. The Luxie went wide. They get the Potato Soul. I'm bad, you're awful. They get the trade kills they get onto Lux. But at the end of the day, it is an Ivern and Nautilus. They don't do that much damage, and Onat is able to come and pick up 2 kills. But oh my god, but the kidnap onto JDLB's. He uses the Smolder ult to try and live, but the flash is committed by the Cassante as well. And yes, this is what you want to do to a Smolder early game. You want to rip him to shreds and never give him a chance to get anything above 30 CS.
Yeah, we'll get to the chaos and balling, but in a bit. But great play by a level 100 Mafia boss, getting the all out, kidnapping the Smolder with no flash, and now it looks like left hand Kane is caught out mid lane. Also, it does have the flash, chooses not to use it because he will just die to the Nautilus and Ivern eventually. And CSU looking much better than last game, making a ton of very promising proactive plays, and the plays coming out from Warriors Gold are very 50-50. Like, you know, balling, you know, the initial engage onto Tom Kench was good. Ona even flashing to deny the Nautilus hook into turret, very well played, but unfortunately they just didn't have enough damage to get the Nautilus. But then right after, as you know, it was a few minutes ago, so I'm not sure if you guys at home remember, but while the Vayne was faking her base, they looked for a redive onto the Nautilus with just a Lux and a Tom Kench, which, you know, I don't know about you, Jamin, but that doesn't seem like a good idea just because there's not much damage on those two, and they do get punished for it. And again, a lot of these bot plays are very messy, and but overall, like CSU's topside play is very, very clean. Like, of course, Supreme has been caught out. Supreme was caught out in the top lane that one time against Kane and Onap, but aside from that, CSU's topside have all been playing very well this game.
Yeah, and it's all about what more they can do because, you know, I'll say at this point, right, I don't think it's just good enough yet, right? The gold lead is still around 1,000. They managed to get the dragon, but they didn't manage to secure, you know, the grubs. And so I think, you know, if you really want to like get control of this game, they have to do more. They have to get prio. I think realistically that's not going to happen in the bot lane just because of the nature of this matchup, but it has to be how they play this top side. The 3-man shuffle, like Waterloo right now, what they're doing is they have a bunch of cups and there's a ball under one of them and they're just shuffling it around like crazy. Like, where is the Smolder? And if CSU spend a little bit too much time playing that game, getting too much caught up a little bit too much, you know, in Warriors trickery, then that's gonna be, you know, one day you wake up and there's gonna be a monster Smolder. But this is what they need to do. They dive onto they dive onto left hand Kane. The fear is gonna try and take him out. The blast gun gonna send back level 100 Mafia lost all the way, but that's gonna be a 2-man. Tom can just knock up the Vayne flash. It's going to have to be blown. Both summoner spells are gone on the side of Vayne. It's going to be the Warriors ball lane, you know, consistently taking the prio. And this is what we mentioned. CSU, no matter what happens in this bot lane, this is going to be hell for Vayne, so they have to get the advantages top. They almost get a kill onto left-hand Kane, but, you know, this means they can at least get the prio and get the grubs.
Yeah, and you know, plays going on, going over to Supreme is very promising. You know, you want kills on this Aurelia so she's able to, you know, side lane effectively.
It hurts.
and Warriors Gold looking to dive this Nautilus again, although they don't have a wave, and this wave is going to take a long time to push in, especially with Ryan Jigglypuff coming back. It appears that Warriors Gold will be they won't be looking to dive anymore. They'll just be looking to poke down this Nautilus.
Hurts so much.
But yeah, this Lux poke is really hurting, and especially with this Vayne, who seems to be building Blade of the Ruin King first instead of the static shift, has no wave clear. And the Nautilus goes onto Ambo. Vayne ult is popped, and Jigglypuff gets the kill onto Ambo. Supreme is here, and Ricky falls as well.
Yeah, and that's gonna be. I think that's what you know, CSU were playing for. They were just playing. You know, Ambo was towing the line. He was doing a lot of damage, but he needed to be a little bit more mindful of the Nautilus ult. And I think that's exactly what CSU wanted. They plant the Nautilus ult on, you know, straight onto Ambo's face. The Vayne tumbles in with the ult. That's so much damage onto a Lux, especially if you don't have targeted CC right against the Vayne. It's gonna be really hard. But speak of the devil, that's going to be Onat feasting on Supreme as Aurelia is taken down. And yeah, this is the thing is, it looks like CSU are gonna run away with the game, and then Waterloo has a little bit of a something to say, and you know, they're coming back slow, and not coming back, I guess, but they're like, you know, not getting completely pushed out of the game with these little skirmishes. And yeah, and hopefully they're trying to buy time, you know, on their their perspective for JDL Beast. But right now, you know, no matter how many kills Vayne has, it's still really hard to beat a Lux.
Yeah, and not opting for that static shift first item must hurt on that Vayne, just because this Lux is going to constantly be pushing this Vayne in, and it's going to be really hard for this Vayne to get any breathing room outside of her turret. You see a play happening in bowling, and Vex ult lands, but no kills over yet. But an amazing Lux Q from Ambo catches Ryan Jigglypuff and takes him down. Now level 100 Mafia boss is TP'd in.
Yep.
Dredgeline goes wide, and
yeah, there's gonna be an extended fight. You know, this is what CSU want. They want the collapse on to left-hand Kane. They want to get more of a punish, but at the end of the day, it's just a one-for-one trade. You know, left-hand Kane doing a good job holding. Oh, I spoke a little bit too soon. I don't know what Ricky is doing at all the way on their side of the map, but that was actually a 5-man collapse that gives Smolder a little bit more room, you know, to do whatever he wants. But Ambo getting Aurelia 200 years Supreme dashes through all of the minions. Never mind, that is going to be a 3-for-1. Onat is looking to avenge his dead buddy. The ultimate is going to be up, but that shield from Ivern actually stops Aurelia, you know, from death there. But now Onat still managed to secure the kill. He's going to be a little bit sad that he wasn't able to stack, but I don't think this Ivern can solo dive a Cho'Gath, even if he has... Okay, no, bye Daisy. Daisy's gone. But even if that happened right there, I think, you know, Waterloo get the good pick onto Ryan Jigglypuff at the beginning of the fight. They do get collapsed on, but both teams have something to say there, right? I'm not going to say one team, you know, came out supremely on top, but, you know, definitely, especially with Smolder chilling top lane, you know, it could go anyone's way. And now Ricky giving a level 100 Mafia boss a little bit of a kiss as he's forced to flash out.
And you know, great attempt by the Ivern to try and save his mid laner from the Trinity Force Cho'Gath. Unfortunately, I guess the Triforce Sheen Talk just does a bit too much damage, and Supreme falls anyway. And a lot of these plays are very back and forth, and I'm sort of, if you're CSU, you shouldn't be settling for these back and forth plays. You should be trying to go for, you know, very guaranteed plays with this lead, with stronger champions, especially with this Smolder, who's basically useless and is probably going to be useless for another 5 to 10 minutes in the game. You should be looking to grab every objective, play very strongly for, you know, the mid tier 1 or the bot tier 1, and make sure you're not dropping any waves. And they will be doing just that right now. They will be getting the Infernal Drake uncontested, and that's 2 Drakes already over to the side of CESU Black, and they should be looking for the soul.
And that is a lot of members of CESU Black that have still stuck around mid lane. It looks like Warriors might have stuck around and bit a little bit more than they could, but that is going to be the CC connecting onto Tom Kench following the Vex. The flash was committed as well. Nautilus, the depth charge, is going to be found onto Cho'Gath. Not much follow-up there. JDL Beast is here, but again, you know, that is a Smolder. There's an Aurelia coming for you. You gotta watch out. That's another flash burn on the side of UW Gold there. And yes, CSU is doing a good job of sticking around, making this death ball of CC, of Doom, you know, taking the dragon, but also managing to get a little bit more, you know, for their efforts to stick around as a 5-man.
Yeah, and despite 3 flashes blown on the side of Warriors Gold and none expended for CSU in that fight, it still ends up being a 1-for-0. So CSU, you know, winning overwhelmingly, and that's what I said. These are the types of plays that we should be expecting from CSU with this lead, with this composition. They should look to very steadily and you know extend their lead, you know, in a very rock solid way. And now they have their sights on the Herald. They should be securing that, and they should be looking to grab a turret with this Herald in combination with the 3 grubs that they have secured. And again, like, so many members on Warriors Gold throughout the game have been caught sleeping. We have, you know, Ambo walking up to the Nautilus ult in bot lane a few minutes ago. We have Kane getting caught randomly mid with flash and still using flash but dying anyways. And of course JDL Beast, you know, dying 3 times in like 10 minutes. And overall, a lot more sloppy of play on the side of Warriors Gold compared to last game. And you have to imagine, like, you know, if this game ends up going over to the side of CSU Black, which obviously isn't set in stone yet, especially when there's a Smolder in the game, anything could happen. And with this pick comp that Warriors Gold have, this game is easily losable for CSU Black. But, you know, but especially if Warriors Gold want to, you know, look to actually win this game and just finish the series right here and now, you know, win in a very clean 2-0. They need to sort of stop playing sloppily. They need to not get caught. They can't be caught sleeping ever again, and they should really, you know, focus on, you know, playing for good fights, good objectives, good picks, and especially not give over any more kills to this Aurelian Vein, because these 2 carries on the side of CSU look to be getting extremely strong.
Yep, and it looks like CSU are doing a little bit of posturing around mid lane. They got the Rift Herald, so I think, yeah, an obvious natural next step is to use the Herald mid. The Nautilus Hook actually going to connect max range onto Ricky. You know, even if he has the the dive, I don't think he's able to get out of that with so much CC. And like we mentioned before, right, CSU are a very short range comp, but they are very CC heavy, right? They have Nautilus, they have the Condemn, they have, I can't even like count all the CC they have. So once they make a pick happen, you know, then it can be just wrapped for whoever's caught on the side of Waterloo. Speaking of which, Cassante just phase taking a turret is probably not on the list of things JDL wanted to see when he woke up this morning. Is the turret shot going to be able to take down the Cassante? That's going to be a shutdown onto the Lux. CESU, you know, want to, you know, discourage the Smolder from growing. They force the dive onto the bot lane. They want to take this time to get the push onto Onat, get the advantage mid lane as well. But with the addition of Ricky into the fight, Onat is just so strong. This is the power of Triforce Cho'Gath. He just flashes forward and destroys Vayne and follows up, destroying Supreme. And this is definitely not on CSU Black's agenda. What is this thing, this big purple thing that's just marching towards them? You know, I think he was like, you know, I don't think Ryan Jigglypuff was ready for that. He had both summoner spells up too.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, first the bot play ends up, you know, sort of failing. In these kinds of positions, you really don't want to be going for one-for-ones, especially into a scaling comp like this Smolder comp that Warriors Gold has. Level 100 Mafia boss on the dive ends up using his all-out Cassante W into the turret. It doesn't end up connecting on JDLBs, and while he does still get the kill, he then didn't have the W to be able to escape from turret range and escape Ambo's E. So it does end up becoming a 1-for-1. And then mid lane, while Supreme and Ryan Jigglypuff are able to secure the tier 1 mid turret, Ryan Jigglypuff, you know, getting a bit too ambitious, not expecting the damage from the Triforce double recurve bow Cho'Gath, and ends up paying the price for it. And Supreme ends up dying too, because he's just able to get chased down by this Cho'Gath somehow.
In a way, I don't fault Ryan Jigglypuff too much, because that's not something you see every day, right? You know, Triforce Cho'Gath that strong. You know, definitely. You know, if I'm like I would have held both some spells to die too, because you know, that's something you don't expect. But that's always the problem with these kind of comps. And speaking of unexpected, the 5-man members of Warriors were just waiting for somebody to jump in, and that is also a huge problem because CSU just dropped Rift Herald.
Yeah, and that is how you look to win these, you know, mid-game fights as Warriors Gold. You want to deny them vision. You want to sweep away all their right. You want to look for picks. Level 100 Mafia boss is going in. Aurelia ult hits 3. Redemption comes out. Smolder comes down as well. Aurelia stun hits 3 as well. And and that's a triple kill for Ryan Jigglypuff, looking to make it a quadra onto Ambo. Ambo forces
get more. This could potentially be a pentakill for this Vayne. Can they do it? That's going to be a shutdown. The Aurelia Supreme, you traitor. What have you done? That is going to be the pentakill taken away from the Vayne. But yeah, that looks so good for Warriors Gold at the beginning, you know, with the pick onto, Potato Soul, you know, getting caught with all the CC abilities. But yeah, that is the power of CSU Black. We talked about how if Warriors set up first, it can be really hard for them to get in. But once they get in, once, you know, the fight turns into an infighting kind of boxing fist fight, then yeah, it's going to be these tanky skirmishers with the Aurelia ult, the Vayne, the Ivern, you know, shielding up everybody, bringing a 5th member into the fight, you know, making up for Potato Soul's death with Daisy there. And yeah, that is a complete clean wipe and a Baron that instantly snowballs CSU Black leads to over 6K, almost getting 7K.
Yeah, and I was definitely skeptical of the fight at the beginning with how it started off, especially because, you know, the Cassante just got immediately CC'd before the fight started, and the Nautilus was already dead. Ricky will get hit by the Ivern Q though.
Yeah, and this is going to be a little bit of deja vu for Waterloo as very, very tanky men are charging towards Waterloo. There is not a thing that they can do to stop this. They don't have the damage to retaliate. They barely made a scratch onto Potato, so that was the only accomplishment they could pull off. JDLB's desperately trying to make something happen, but this Aurelia doesn't care. The stun's gonna land. That Q cooldown should be up in 1, 2, 3. He doesn't even, yeah, he just Smolder dead. Yeah. Baron up. That's gonna be soul point for CSU, and we talked about them needing to do more. They are going above and beyond right
and this is what we needed to see from CSU in that game 1, this sort of proactive play. And once again, that fight, and once again, I have to, commend Supreme for his team fighting capabilities in this game, as well as what we saw in Game 1. In that earlier, 5-for-0 team fight that secured CESU the Baron, Supreme hit 3 members of Warriors Gold with that Aurelia ult, and then immediately follows up with another 3-man stun, winning them the fight. And of course, Ryan Jigglypuff not getting hit by any key CC spells, being able to kite and dodge effectively, and able to, almost secure the pentakill if it wasn't for, Supreme, stealing the last kill onto the Smolder. But overall, like, this is what you want to see from Akari's on the side of CSU. Now the gold lead has ballooned to almost 1,000 gold in just 23 minutes, and CSU also have their sights on the Dragon Soul coming up in the next few minutes. And with the Soul, with the Soul and the Baron expiring, CSU should be in a position to end the game before the Smolder is able to get out of hand.
Yeah, and I think at this point, if you're Waterloo, you're hoping for Ryan Jigglypuff getting angry that Supreme stole the Penta and getting up and smacking him in the head with a keyboard. Because, yeah, this seems dire. Soul Point, Baron, the amount of CC and team fighting ability CSU Black have, especially when the Smolder is barely a character. He's like a quarter of a champion at this point. The CC is going to be thrown out. There's going to be some stuff, a little bit of damage by the Lux, but at the end of the day, there's just so much CSU can do, especially with these Ivern bushes to take this top side. We see that this is basically A-Rat, all random, all top type situation, as Cassante just held W and just live.
Yeah. Everybody blew all their spells on Cassante, but Cassante barely lost 50% of HP. The Cassante is so strong right now with those 2 items, with the Jack Show and the Kane and Gukern, and Supreme might be caught out here actually. The Vex ult connects. Onan is on top of him with that Triforce. He gets knocked up. The Redemption comes in to try and save him. Does save him temporarily, but Supreme will fall.
Yep, and that was a lot of effort that Warriors had to spend to get Supreme, but obviously, that was a pretty free, engagement. There's no objectives, nothing, no follow-up, not many. I don't think they blew any summoner spells either. So, that's gonna be an oasis in the middle of a desert, but. Yeah, that's gonna be so much.
But I also think if you're CSU, you cannot, you still have to hold your breath. You can't really let go of this game quite yet, especially because Warriors Gold have such strong pick potential, even with how far ahead CSU Black. If that Lux Root or if that Vex ult catches out one of anyone except that Cassante and maybe even the Nautilus out of position, they're very easy to one-shot through the chain CC from the Cho'Gath Q, from the Vex Sphere, from the Lux ult. From the Lux Q and the Tonkench W, and so if you're CSU, you really can't be giving over these shutdowns, especially to Warriors Gold, who do have a fairly strong scaling composition. Although CSU at the same time, team fights aren't going to get so out of hand, especially because this Cho'Gath will be kind of squishy, but Supreme might be caught out again.
Yeah, they want to go for this again. They know that Supreme have to, be caught out here on the side lane, but he is so tanky, and with the Ivern back up, this Aurelia refuses to die, but at the end of the day, that Supreme caught once again. The Vayne is just standing over the wall. The ult is popped, but I mean, Ivern goes down. That means a little bit too much to deal with for Vayne. The barrier is gonna be popped. I don't think Waterloo can continue this play, but that binding lands onto Nautilus. That's another flash. That is a huge screw up for CESU. They needed to keep their foot. They needed to keep their concentration, but that was a little bit of a domino situation, right? Aurelia goes down, right? Ivern, maybe could have abandoned her, but he dies, he falls, trying to save her to the very end. Vayne jumps in with the ultimate, but without any of his teammates there, at the end of the day, no matter how strong you are, you were still an ADC. He gets focused, he has to burn barrier, he has to burn flash. And Nautilus, standing on the side there, gets hit by the Lux Binding, he has to burn flash. And that is just a lot of tempo that Waterloo managed to claw back.
Yeah, and Supreme honestly for a second had me thinking that with the Ivern he'd be able to turn the fight. He eventually does fall after doing quite a bit of damage though, but I still think CSU could have won that fight if Ryan Jigglypuff was able to dodge away or flash away from that Cho'Gath Q. Unfortunately, he doesn't react in time. He does get hit, and he blows his both sums anyways. And now you have to imagine for the next fight. Whenever the next fight breaks out, whether it's around Drake or around the Baron that's about to spawn soon, it's going to be really hard for this Vayne to play this team fight without flash, without barrier. Still, if this Vayne is hit by any form of CC, whether it's the Cho'Gath Q, whether it's the Vex Sphere, whether it's the Tonkench W somehow, or whether it's the Lux Root, the Vayne is still very easy to kill and will likely die immediately to this chain CC on the side of Warriors Gold. And so CESU still have a very hard to execute comp, and they still have to play very carefully around this pick comp that Warriors Gold have.
Yeah, but there's a long flank by level 100 Mafia boss. Ricky is at the forefront of this fight. We have to look out for what abilities are used where. Ricky is taking the brunt of the damage right now. The Vanguard's advance going to land only to one member. The Smolder ult is thrown out in an attempt to disengage. That is a shield for like 3/4 of Ricky's HP, but at the end of the day, that's not going to be enough HP for him to live. And yes, this is exactly what we talked about with CSU Black. United, they stand. Divided, they fall. If they fight like that before, you know, and get picked off one by one, Warriors are able to use a Cho'Gath, a Lux, you know, anything in their disposal, you know, to stop, you know, CSU's momentum from joining up as a team, and they have a chance. But once CSU are in their death ball and they're comfortably in position with all their carries like this, then yeah, it's gonna be a little bit hard for them to do anything. Lux does a lot of damage, but that's Soul. Probably okay, over to CSU.
Yeah, and it looks like Ambo can be caught out here as well, although the dredge line does go wide and Ambo should be able to walk out of this with his life. Although Supreme is TPing behind them, but Ricky is there to protect his ADC.
I have no idea how anyone on CSU is going to die this game with Ocean Soul, especially now.
I do think that, I think the reason CESU was so confident taking that fight is because they saw the entirety of Warriors Gold on vision as they look towards, you know, the Baron. And they look to secure that and look to potentially end the game very soon. And I do think that is the approach CESU should take. They should be like, hey, if we know where all of you are with this pick comp, there's no way we win a 5v5 and we can just hardcore it. Because even though, you know, there's no range for the Nautilus ult, the Nautilus hook also goes wide on the initial engage. Level 100 Mafia boss is basically just able to walk into them and just stand in front of them, and that is able to initiate a fight.
And right now, the remnants of CSU unable and discouraged off the Baron with the Lux ultimate are being left. You know, they are being chased by members of Waterloo Black Potato Soul. That is the power of the Ocean Soul, of the Ivern, of the Redemption. Because Jesus Christ, he just lives.
I thought, and it seems to me that CSU as well were thinking about sacking the Nautilus, but now it looks like a 5v5 is just going to break out. Level 100 Mafia boss does have a flank. But the fight looks good initially for Warriors Gold, but Ryan Jigglypuff is still alive. That Vayne, that carry is still hitting the Cho'Gath. Doesn't kill the Cho'Gath, but level 100 Mafia boss is able to take him down. And it's a 4-for-3 going over to the side of Warriors Gold, and the Smolder is still alive. Yeah. And crucially, that's 4 Barons taken away from CESU immediately after they secured it.
Yeah, I actually don't know how that fight went so poorly for CSU. It almost looked like wraps for Waterloo, especially with the level 100 Mafia boss's flank there. You know, this is when I wish we had a budget for a replay system because I really, you know, sometimes want to see what kind of fight happened there, because I was ready to start casting now, okay, like CSU, like take the game, like that was the team fight, but Warriors somehow managed to make that happen, and the Smolder, I guess, is slowly bringing Warriors over, you know, to the promised land, right? You know, promised land. I think he's definitely over, you know, I think well over, you know, 225 stacks at this point. Yeah. And I think yeah, like you can't underestimate the amount of damage that Warriors can output. It was more of an issue that CSU were like really tanky versus like Warriors having no damage. But I think that was a fight where it really shows that, yeah, if they get a good fight, they're really still back in the game. And that gold went from I think something like 10k to like a 5k now for a 6k. So one more fight might do it.
And I'm really wondering why CESU just didn't take the win of being able to save their support and just base and reset, because they must have been sitting on a ton of gold, because 3 members on CESU had not based yet. The Nautilus, the Vayne, and I believe it was the Ivern still hadn't based yet. They were getting chased through the jungle, and so after they went, okay, let's just sacrifice Nautilus and make sure that our Vayne and Ivern is able to base safely. And once they realized they were able to save the Nautilus, I'm really wondering why I'm sure they were just very confident that they were going to win the fight, but it seems to me the safe play would have just been to, you know, back off, lose a bit of tempo, but, you know, get a reset off, you know, regroup, recuperate, and, you know, go for another get vision in the river, get vision in the jungle, and go for very confident 5v5s on vision, making sure that they can't get picked off. But now, you know, with 4 kills going over to the side of Warriors Gold, and now, you know, without Baron on 4 of their members, and now with the Baron running out, the Warriors couldn't really do much with that Baron take.
Yeah, and now it's I think CSU's next phase plan is to just go for Elder, right? And without a huge, I think, you know, even if Warriors did win that last fight, I think definitely CSU are still favored in these fights if they manage to play it properly. So I think CSU, you know, they want to do the smart thing. They want to force Warriors to walk into them in the Elder fight and hopefully just out team fight them. But I think one thing also you have to look out for, right, is the Cho'Gath.
Yeah.
This Cho'Gath has full damage at this point, and even if you're a frontline, if you get eaten for like 1,000 true damage, the fight could easily tilt the way of Waterloo. And they actually want to take some more early vision. They want to walk in right now. They saw that CSU were doing a little bit of a reset, so they want to do, you know, a little bit of a cheeky play. You know, maybe catch out Supreme. He managed it back on time. Good for him. But yeah, you got to be careful because JDL Beast. He's level 17. He has full sums. He's 3 items finally on the board, and yeah, it could be dangerous.
Yeah, and if you're CSU, while you're still happy with having, you know, a pretty commanding 5,000 gold lead, the game should not have come to this. Especially if this game ends up coming down to a Baron flip instead of an Elder flip instead of an Elder 5v5. How are you going to outsmite a Cho'Gath who can flash our smite into the pit? That's almost 2,500 true damage, I believe. And if this does come down to an Elder flip, this could spell bad news for CSU back and now.
And that's going to be popped. Ivern just deleted from existence with the Smolder, the Lux follow-up. That is disastrous for the side of CESU. This is really, really bad. The last hope is the Vayne. They actually managed to take down left-hand Kane, but that is going to be Onad managing to get Vayne down with his last breath. The Smolder executes are popping everybody. And that's what you had to watch out for, the amount of potential. You might have an Ivern, you might be tanky, but not everything can be face tank with so much damage and like a Smolder with like 10 gazillion stacks, you know, on the side of Waterloo. It's so dangerous. I think Supreme is playing on the edge a little bit here to try and discourage Waterloo from ending the game. They go for the flash. Oh, he deletes Ambo out of existence. Can he go on the Smolder as well? Supreme, this is the man you need when he needs to be clutch. He showed such a dominant performance. Unfortunately, they lost the last game on Yone, but Supreme might have just saved the game here for CSU.
Supreme, once again, bailing out his team, basically. You know, that fight looks so bad for CSU. I mean, Warriors Gold doing a great job playing around the Fog of War that CSU have. And now, very importantly, the Smolder and Lux are both dead, while everybody on CSU has now respawned. And it looks like this should be a very, very free Elder for CSU, unless that, and that Cho'Gath doesn't have flash, so he has no means of access into the pit. So there should be no way that Onad is able to steal away this Elder Dragon.
Yeah, Onad's just waddling his way bot river, but like you mentioned, the carries of Waterloo are still respawning. This is going to be 10 years. If CSU Black just want to look for the turn, want to look for the engage. Yeah, Supreme gets the kill onto the Tahm Kench. Onad, remember, this Cho'Gath is not the tankiest thing in the world, so if he's chased down, he is still vulnerable. But it looks like actually Warriors want to just actually take the, you know, valid play, right? They want to take the inhibitor. They want to put the pressure on so the Elder isn't as decisive as CSU hoped to be. You know, CSU now, they want to take down, you know, the Elder with the Aurelia solo and take the fight here. Lux finally connects onto 2 level 100 Mafia boss with the Cassante abilities. Want to chase this down, but the Vex Sphere discourages that a little bit as well. Supreme looking to cut off Ambo left-hand Kane. If he gets the engage, it could be game. But yes, Waterloo managed to push a little bit onto mid, but they don't get the inhibitor.
Yeah, and if you're CSU, I think right now you're looking to, you know, push the waves in mid, make sure that, you know, you have a wave to play on, and firstly secure this Baron, and try to end the game in the next minute with Baron buff and Elder buff, because you really can't let this game go on any longer with the infinitely stacked, you know, scaling Smolder. You really want to, on this next wave, if Ambo's not able to clear that mid wave that's in mid currently, if I'm CSU, I want to end right now, or I guess end after a reset and after, you know, everybody's able to reach full build, and we should see a mega push come out by CSU in the next minute or two, and you know, really see CSU put their foot down and say, hey, we're going to just run at you through a wave with this Baron buff. You're not able to clear it because of the extra magic resistance and armor that our minions have. So, you know, the Lux ult isn't going to one-shot the wave. Neither is the Smolder ult. And they're just going to try and walk into Warriors Gold's base with this full build Aurelia, with this almost full build Cassante, and with this 4-item Ivern and the 4-item Vayne, and try to end the game right here, right now.
If this is CESU and you can't end the game at this moment, then it could be, you know, anybody's game at that point, so you have to be careful. Waterloo still have, you know, a mini Elder Dragon of their own in the form of Smolder. But yes, CESU, they want to play ARAM, they want to use all their buffs, pull out all the stops. Man, they need to finish off, they need to strike the head off of Warriors Gold right now. The first thing they're going to do is try and get the turret down. Warriors are giving them that leeway. The inhibitor going to be given over. If I'm CSU, I'm marching straight into the Nexus, and this is going to be the fight that decides the game. The Luxalt is invested early to clear out the wave a little bit. The CC is going to land onto members of CSU, but there's such a huge shield on them, they have to back off for a little bit. Melissa goes wide. They're going to be going back for the next wave. I think that Elder Dragon is almost worn off at this point, so I think that is what Warriors will be banking on. They're waiting for the moment that Elder goes off. They can potentially take a fight. Cassante W's in forward. Nautilus is caught with the CC combo. That's going to be Nautilus vaporized out of existence, but Aurelia is dashing in. She is doing a 1v4, but too many summoner spells on the side of Warriors. Ricky manages to live as well. Angel Buff kills left-hand Kane, but this Smolder is going crazy, but this Vayne is the last bastion of CESU that manages to keep them in this fight. But unfortunately for CESU, that means that game is not over yet.
Yeah, a bit of a misstep by the Nautilus, thinking he was more tanky than he actually is. But still, Supreme almost just immediately one-shots left-hand Kane, but crucially, Ricky manages to devour the Vex in the last second. Of course, the Vex still falls, but it forces Supreme to go in further than expected to try and kill the Smolder. And Supreme, while chunking the Smolder very heavily, does end up falling anyways. But crucially, that Vayne was uncontested for the entire fight. CSU was looking to play more. I mean, Warriors Gold was looking to play more front to back in that fight with the assistance of the turrets, but it made it so that the Vayne was able to free hit and almost killed the Tahm Kench if Ricky didn't press his E in time, and also take down Ona, who's still very tanky, but with the uptime on the Vayne, it's only a matter of seconds before anybody on the side of Warriors Gold ends up falling. But overall, I think if you're Warriors Gold, you should be pretty happy with that because you didn't lose a single Nexus turret. One of the Nexus turrets was chunked pretty low, but it's still standing, and you only really lost a mid inhibitor from that fight. And crucially now, you're able to wait 3-4 more minutes for the next big objective spawn for this Smolder to continue scaling.
Yeah, and Warriors are going to be doing this thing again where they just sit in the line bush. They're going to be waiting. I think they've done this like 3 times now. So if CSU fall for this again, no, not again. Ivern is popped like a balloon, and that is 431 Smolder stacks online for the side of Waterloo. And now they might just look to make their advances into CSU's base. They might go for this inhibitor. They might make some ground, but they have the prio in the next upcoming Baron or Elder.
And I'm so surprised that if you think about all the times Warriors Gold is able to get an advantageous fight, it's always through a pick out of when they're out of vision, when they're able to get rid of CSU's vision or find a fog of war pocket where CSU can't see them stacking in a bush, and get a pick onto the Ivern or onto the Aurelia or onto the Nautilus. And I think the fact that CSU is constantly falling for these these traps and not walking together, I really think CSU have to sort of give much more respect to Warriors Gold to this pick potential and stop face checking these bushes, especially with with anybody except the Cassante. Like to me, I think the only champion that can afford face checking is the Cassante. But even if Cassante's face checking without his team, he'd very easily just get CC'd to death and have no way to run.
Yeah, speaking of face checking and speaking of bush camping, Warriors are just waiting to bite down if CSU Black, try to come around. You have to see what kind of direction they're doing it again. I don't know if this is legal. They're gonna stand in the same bush over and over again, but maybe this time CSU are just like, no, I'm gonna push it mid. I'm gonna take priority. I'm gonna threaten to push into your Nexus because, yeah, they don't see anybody on the side of Warriors. Smolder is actually staying in the Dragon Pit. I think Warriors are looking to take a fight, though. That Nautilus is caught awfully far in front. The Cho'Gath ult doesn't land, but Smolder is soloing the Elder Dragon.
But he does it so slowly. I think what CESU is doing is very smart. They're running it down mid and they're saying, hey, if you expend too many players to stop our mid push, with this super minion that we have, you suddenly don't have enough damage to do the Elder while we're away. And if you commit to the Elder, then we're just going to take your base. And now, after the Smolder was forced to base, after taking too much damage for Elder, now CESU is turning onto the Elder, setting up the Ivory bushes, you know, to sort of play out of vision from Warriors Gold, and they're looking to potentially look for a fight around this Elder.
Dashes in. The ultimate lands onto so many members of you Warriors, but the health bars are not ticking down. We have to see who the first victim is going to be, and it's Smolder that goes down. That's huge for CESU. The Vayne is completely uncontested in this fight. Ricky is the second to fall. The teleport is going to be channeled straight behind by the Cassandre, and without the Savior, without Smolder, Warriors look so vulnerable. They're everything they can to cut the wave here. Onat is just sprinting at mid. He wants to cut the wave. He wants to make sure that they can't end, but this is a desperate play. How long can Onat stall? How long can Anbo and Left Hand Gain clear the wave? Onat seems to be making a lot of progress, actually, you know, running away here, getting the silence, you know, living for a really long time. But at the end of the day, that's still going to be a Vayne available to free hit this Elder Dragon, unless we see like a miraculous Lux Q-ult, QE ult combo, you know, steal the Elder Dragon. It looks like this is going to be Elder and Baron once again for CESU. However, Smolder is coming up, and usually I would just be like, oh, well, like this should end the game, but we saw how last fight that CSU had both Elder and Baron, and they were unable to end it just because of the Smolder power and the Lux power and the pick power that Warriors had. And this time Smolder does have Flash, so you have to watch out. This is round 2 of possibly one of the craziest games I've seen, you know, this split so far.
But I do think CESU is making a mistake. I don't think they should have went on the Baron immediately. I think they should have focused on pushing out mid, because now with the wave pushed so far in mid, you know, Warriors Gold has a lot of time before these waves start being a problem, and CSU is able to force these fights with this Elder buff and Baron buff, and especially with how much, you know, wave clear Warriors Gold has with the Lux ult, with the Smolder ult, with, you know, with the Vex wave clear. You know, you really, if you're CSU, I feel like you should really be putting a lot of emphasis on these wave states, making sure you have waves to play off, so that if you do win a fight like what we saw earlier in the, around the Elder Dragon, you're able to play off of these waves and you know, end the game while the team is while the players on Warriors Gold are still dead, or you know, or you have the tempo to secure a Baron, come back to base, come out of base, and still have, you know, waves meeting in the middle of the map, so you have enough time to, you know, make full use of these timed buffs, because of course Elder and Baron do run out eventually, and if Warriors Gold are able to constantly push in these waves before they lose these fights, before CESU secures the Elder and the Baron, they could very easily stall out these buffs for a very long time.
Yep, and look at the summoner spells on both teams. All parries on the side of Warriors Gold have ouch, that really hurt Iron actually, and all members on Warriors Gold have their flash up. You know, I don't think that was the case last time. The Nautilus connects, but this is exactly, I think, how Potato Soul died last time. You know, he walks a little bit too far up as Nautilus, and he gets popped by all the damage from Waterloo. CSU put the bushes up. Cassandre makes the dive. That's a 2-man knockup into the carries of Waterloo. So much focus is being dumped onto left-hand Kane. Smolder is still alive. Nexus is completely exposed. Vayne is alive. Both summoner spells are up. They're just focusing the Nexus down. And that is game 2 taken by CSU after possibly one of the messiest, dirtiest, fist-fightiest, rumbliest games that I've seen so far in League of Legends.
I think that's definitely one of, you know, that game was so messy throughout the entirety of the game. The early game was so back and forth with, you know, with players on both teams constantly getting caught in the side lanes and getting caught mid or getting caught in the jungle. You know, going into the mid game, you know, again, so many back and forth fights. I think the mid game was the most one-sided portion of the game I think we saw in the entire game. I think CSU was fairly dominant throughout the mid game, but once we got to mid game, once we got to late game, again, like fights started going back and forth, and CSU crucially getting caught over and over again. And I really think, like, going into game 3, I think CSU should focus on, you know, not dying in the same way over and over again, because I think, you know, if Ivern didn't get caught in the same bush twice in a row, I think CSU would have ended the game way earlier, and I think they wouldn't have to rely on these heroic efforts by Supreme on the Aurelia or by Ryan Jigglypuff on the Vayne to really win this game, because like I think based on the game state and how fights were going, I think if Supreme and Ryan Jigglypuff really didn't have these standout moments and MVP level performance moments, they would have, they would have. I think CSU really would have lost this game, and I think as CSU, you shouldn't have to rely on these types of performances when you're so far ahead. I think they need, if going into game 2, if they have a similar early game lead, they should look to play the game, much more solidly and minimize mistakes, and not be so coin flippy.
Yeah, and oh my God, that was certainly a game of all time. As that really felt like the Warriors were dangling off the cliff.
Yeah.
And then CESU were just like stomping on their hand, but the
They
Warriors
kept
are just
holding on. Yeah,
like
they kept
moving the
holding on.
hand
Yeah.
around, like
Yeah.
they're like holding on, and finally at the end with Baron and Elder and everything, and the Cassante just diving in and getting the knockup, like they managed to secure the game out.
Yeah.
They managed to finally break Waterloo's back and make them plummet into whatever. But you got to remember this is game 2,
Yeah.
right? Like
The
it's a
series
best
is
of
now
3
tied.
series. And if I'm so on the side, like you mentioned, on the side of both teams, I think if you're CESU, you definitely want to be cleaner with the
Yeah.
macro. You want to like stomp out the game, especially if like you shouldn't be falling for the same like vision plays over and over again in the same locations. But if you're Waterloo, I would definitely look to not be 10k gold down
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
in the first place. And I think like risk like just saying conservatively, I think if they didn't go down that much gold, like you're supposed to be down gold on that kind of comp, but not by that
Yeah.
amount. So if they weren't down that much gold, then they definitely would have had a lot more opportunities to take that game into their own hands. So overall, not the cleanest game from both teams, but at the same time, those are the games that make League of Legends entertaining.
Yeah, and a win is a win, and now CESU is able to tie up the series 1-1. Now going into game 3, that will decide, the winner will qualify to playoffs, and the loser isn't out of the tournament yet, but they will have to play another best of 3 against the winner of Seneca Polytechnic and the Canadian Military College to determine if they're able to qualify to still get a chance to qualify to playoff.
So stick around.
welcome back, everyone, to the series between the University of Calgary and the University of Waterloo. Game one was taken by Warriors Gold in a very commanding win, and a very snowbally one. But game two, a very close back and forth. But ultimately, you sorry,
Calgary?
Yeah, Calgary, Calgary. uh, CESU was able to
Hard thing to remember. Yeah.
CESU was able to pull out a win in game two, and now to remind everyone what stage of the bracket we are in, we're in a 4-team Swiss stage. So first team, so it's 2 wins you qualify to playoffs, 2 losses you're out. Both teams right now are 1-0 in the Swiss stage, and the winner of this game 3, of this penultimate game 3, will advance to playoffs, and the loser will still have a chance to qualify in the next best of 3. They will be playing the winner of the lower bracket matchup between Seneca Polytechnic and the Canadian and the Military College of Canada.
Right, and you want to win, right? Even if that this game isn't the end of the world, losing this game isn't the end of the world. You obviously still want to win and figure out, early, maybe look at the other teams, fight it out a little bit. Exactly.
And getting rest and whatever. And jumping straight into draft, we already have the first 3 picks on both teams almost figured out already, although I want to focus on the bands first. Warriors sticking with their Kog'Maw Gwen bands, but they instead opt to ban the Ziggs this time. CESU opting to keep the same bands as last game, the Hui, Corki, Rel. And if it just looking at the draft coming out initially, immediately we see the Warriors. Wait, that is Warriors. Right? Yeah, it should be Warriors Black. Warriors Gold opting for Skarner, Zeri, Yumi as their first 3 picks. Very obviously, signaling that they want a very strong front to back comp. They want to play through this area. All resources will be going towards the ball lane to make sure this area is able to scale and able to dominate team fights. Calgary, on the other hand, looking for a very similar style draft as last game. They opt for an Ivern. They also picked the Seraphine, which can be a flex in terms of support ADC and even potentially mid, but I think we will be seeing it in the bot lane just because I think Ivern Seraphine mid jungle is pretty terrible.
Yeah, and the Warriors respecting Supreme, Zorelia in that last ban as well. I think definitely.
Yeah.
In front of that, after that, I think a mid fight, definitely Warriors could have cemented the game out there, but then Supreme turned it around in like a crazy 1v3. So good to see the respect from the Warriors there, as like you mentioned, CESU going for a really similar comp identity at last game. Basically just like a death ball with a gazillion shields and like really tanky people.
Yeah, and
there is an Ivern, a Seraphine, a Cassandre, and a Leona on the same team.
And especially now with the Seraphine, with the empowered Ws, and the Ivern shielding on top of that, and Redemption's coming down, it's going to be very hard to kill the members of CESU. Although I am very concerned about the damage. What they do have to. I'm assuming the Seraphine is going to go bot lane, and if that is the case, they do need a very strong AD mid laner to go with this death ball. One option is the Tristana mid, another option is the Yone mid. Champions like this, although Warriors seems to be covering up that option of the Yone potentially. Picking the Poppy, denying the dashes, also denying the engage from Leona. Being able to cast the W as Leona is trying to E in, and also denying any Cassandre dashes whenever he goes all out, and the Ahri is blinded for Warriors Gold, a fairly safe blind pick on the side of Warriors Gold, and after seeing the entire team comp, I think especially with the Ahri, who should be able to get prio in a lot of matchups mid lane, and also be a very safe pick mid lane with the Spirit Rush. She should demand a lot of resources from the jungler.
Right.
I think it's very obvious. And with the Poppy pick top lane, it's very obvious that Warriors Black once again are essentially doubling down on this Ahri and saying that, we'll just pick a very nimble, agile, safe mid laner mid who can also act as engage and follow up engage, and everything will go into this Ahri.
Yep. And one thing to notice, definitely different from last game, is Warriors draft is looking a lot less volatile, right? Like there's no one lane that you can just obviously go to and run over at this point. Obviously. I think, like you mentioned, CESU have to end up, with a carry mid laner. I think that, giving that mantle to Supreme, who's been on crazy forms on these games, is probably the right choice for their type of playstyle. And obviously, the Death Ball game really hard for Waterloo to deal with it last time. But I don't think it's going to play out in the exact same dynamic just because Zeri Yumi, right, have staying power in the fights, right? The problem I think we saw last game for the Waterloo Warriors, Warriors Gold in these extended team fights was that if like stuff happened, like summoner spells were just blown and like stuff happened at the end of the fight, there was like a vein rolling around, right? And then that would be basically be wraps. But I think especially if you're playing Zeri Yumi, I think now Waterloo are just hoping to just infinitely kite and have that similar sort of carry power as that Vayne did last game. So it's not just gonna be a one-sided, oh, the Vayne's alive, the fight is over. But yeah, definitely, we have to see, can they pull it off, a crazy front to back.
Yeah, and we're getting information now that the last pick on the side of CESU was in fact the Tristana. A strong backline, AD backline carry to round out this composition. The Tristana should be very heavily and very well protected by the Ivern, by the Seraphine, even by the Leona and the Cassante just standing there and tanking, tanking RE charms, making sure Skarner can't E onto the Tristana. And, overall, I think both comps are very similar stylistically in the sense that they're playing around the hyper carry marksman. On the side of CESU, they're playing around Tristana. And on the side of Warriors Gold, they're playing around the Zeri. Although I will say that CESU have a much stronger early game composition, especially around that mid lane. Tristana is a very dominant laner, and if CESU is able to secure early grubs and even an early Rift Herald, the Tristana should be just blowing through these turrets and accelerate any leads that he might get. And on the side of Warriors Black, though, they obviously have much stronger scaling. Obviously, you can't play with CESU scaling with the Ivern with the Seraphine. However, and the combination, the Zeri Yumi just scales so well, and especially into a relatively low range composition on the side of CESU. If they're not able to lock down the Zeri with the Leon ult, with the Seraphine ult, with some changes, or if they're not able to surprise and one shot the Zeri with the combination of Tristana and Cassante, in these long extended fights, the Zeri come late game should be able to outdamage the Tristana.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think CS you have to be a little bit more careful than last game though, because I think Tristana, while that she's been this meta pick, like that has been one of those picks where you like been able to find a lot of value, especially in the mid game and early mid late game. She has something to say in all stages of the game. Even after the patches and after the meta has shifted slightly, she's no longer kind of the indomitable like mid lane destroyer that like goes and like hyper carries games by herself. And that's why she has this infrastructure built around her now. She has like basically 4 people to help her. Like this is basically to protect the Tristana comp. And this means that even heavier now than before, the shoulders of Supreme, there is a lot of burden, on him to carry the game, to him to get, to go at least go even in lane and to pick up some, like split push pressure so he can ultimately overwhelm the Zeri Yumi. But yeah, it's gonna be hard, right? Like Skarner, like Poppy, these are characters that you just can't ignore as Tristana. We see players like freaking like Faker like jump in and kill himself as Tristana by accident, all the time. Into these like volatile matchups, so you have to be really careful. But I think in terms of execution wise, which team do you think has it easier, or do you think it's kind of similar?
I definitely think CESU has an easier to execute team comp, and I think it's like they've sort of fixed the problem they had in the game 1 draft in the sense that, or I think the problems that CESU had in game 1 are now reflected in Warriors Gold's team comp, in the sense that Warriors Gold don't have very consistent, reliable primary CC engage. The RE charm can be dodged or can be blocked by one of the tanks. The Poppy can only really engage when the Poppy has flash up, and obviously Skarner, like we mentioned before, like Skarner Impale is very valuable, but if it's ever flashed away from, the Skarner is basically useless for the rest of the fight, and also the Skarner E is very easy to dodge. Whereas on the side of CESU, not only do you have pretty easy engage, primary engage, you also have very non-committal engage. You have the Ivern Q where, if you miss it, like, it's whatever, right? It's a low cooldown, and you don't have to dash to the Ivern Q if the Q connects either. It's the same with the Leona ult. If the Leona ult hits, CSU is still able to assess the situation, decide whether or not they need to go in. I think in that sense, CSU would have a lot more agency in these fights, and they have a lot more opportunities to decide, what to do and how to play these fights. And I think just because of that, just because they have larger windows or more specifically, just because Waterloo Gold have much smaller windows and they have to play a lot more reactively with the Poppy, with the Skarner as peel, I do think I am favoring CESU's comp. Also, just because they also have a stronger early game, which should mean they should be able to secure early grubs and secure early dragon.
And I think maybe one thing that we do have to consider also is how CSU were playing last game. We talked about how it was a little bit disappointing, how they kept falling for the same tricks with the vision. And, Warriors comp definitely, like you mentioned, doesn't have a primary engage. But if it's out of vision, then obviously there are, so many things that could happen. A charm into stun, into impale, right? Like, there could be so many things that could happen to anybody from CSU that walks into, a bush by accident. So they have to be more diligent this time, definitely, for sure. With probably walking the Cassante in there, maybe freaking walk the Daisy in there, like, who knows. But I think we definitely have to make sure that CSU, if I'm CSU, that I'm a bit more diligent with how I'm doing my vision plays, with how how easy it is to, especially if you're on a Tristana carry comp, it's really hard to, like the thing is, like Waterloo can almost fire on like 3 fronts, right?
Yeah.
With like Ari and Zeri and Skarner probably kind of making up like the 3 like fronts of damage. And meanwhile, if CSU, if they lose Tristana, it's I don't know. I mean, maybe Cassante can go all out and style on everybody, but yeah. But they definitely more high difficulty comp to execute from the side of Waterloo, as we're going to be going straight into the next game.
And I think lessons from last game that are still applicable to this game. I think CSU, just don't make sure you're establishing good vision, get that vision score up, place wards, deny enemy vision. I think vision is so important when playing against a team like Warriors Gold, who just love to play around vision. They love to catch people out in Fog of War. They love to catch people face checking. I think that's a very big point of focus for CESU. And for Warriors Gold, I think the biggest takeaway from last game is just don't get too overconfident. You still have to respect your opponents. Like so many times last game, various members of Warriors were stepping up to waves when they really shouldn't without flash, or they were stepping up to Nautilus with ult, not thinking they could die, but they just got one shot anyways. And I think both these teams have things they need to clean up from last game. But if that does happen, I do think we're in for a very banger game.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, like you mentioned, it was a little bit egregious sometimes on the bot plays. I think in a perfect world, Waterloo should have basically been able to snowball the game out of bot.
Yeah.
But the amount of kills that went over to Nautilus and Vayne just because, just by a thread, I guess, just by a little bit, a little bit of a problem that went wrong for Waterloo and that really changed the outcome of the lane, the outcome of the game. And so Warriors have to definitely tone down on their early game mistakes, make sure they don't get shut out as hard as they did last game, so they can, stabilize a bit more, because, yeah, they definitely have something to say late game too. They have Zeri Yumi, they have a front line. It's not like they're playing some crazy, like we mentioned, we keep talking about, like, comps that need to get ahead, so, a bit more of a different dynamic this time, in that, both teams kind of are looking towards late game value, as well as, not as, like, one-sided as last time, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think another thing to note is the Zeri started call, and while, and in this Seraphine Leona lane, you shouldn't expect too much kill pressure onto the Zeri, especially because of the triple defensive summoners on the side of Warriors Gold from the heal, cleanse, and exhaust. However, while historically, if you think about pro play at the highest in Tier 1 regions, historically Zeri Yumi is actually quite a formidable lane duo, especially when you have these pro level Yumis being able to maximize the laning effectiveness and laning dominance of such an unassuming champion that Yumi is. I do still think though that especially with the Cold Start, Enbo needs to be very careful because being forced to blow your summoners early could very well lead to a very dangerous and deadly gank or dive in the ball lane, and that would completely ruin Warriors Gold's game plan.
Yeah, and I really like the range that Ryan Jigglypuff has been showing in his picks. Oh, and speaking of which, I think we're getting a little bit of deja vu from the Skarner gank angle, but albeit this time it's on the side of Waterloo. Supreme is going to take a lot of damage. He's looking to pop that mine onto Ari, but I don't think he got that last shot off. Onat is forced to flash. I wonder if Supreme or Ivern is going to take this flash. No, Onat is going to be able to make it out with his life, but at the end of the day, that's going to be the Skarner flash burned. As yeah, JDL Bread taking these trades, and Poppy is definitely not Smolder.
Yeah, third game for and JDL Beast able to catch level 100 Mafia boss with the Poppy into the wall and is actually able to take first blood 3 minutes into the game.
Yeah, you cannot underestimate Poppy. This thing, right? This unassuming Yordle is one of the biggest menaces top lane if you let her get her perfect trade angles off. Yeah, and JDL Beast, perfectly hits that level up timing, slams level 100 Mafia boss into the wall, turning him into like a level 10 grunt, and making sure that he this time is not the one getting farmed on Smolder.
Yeah, definitely not what you want to see top lane, but going back to the mid game, amazingly enough, Supreme was not forced to blow flash in that interaction at all, and actually ended up coming out, winning in HP. So, you should expect, CESU to be very happy with the state of mid lane. The Tristana winning lane, and also, despite the early gank, not only did they get, not only did they not have to blow flash on Tristana, but they also managed to get Skarner's flash. And that'll be so crucial for these upcoming Drake fights and Grub fights at the 5 and 6 minute mark, respectively. And, Ryan Jigglypuff did, just the bot lane, boring, unassuming as usual. Not much going on in the Seraphine Zeri lane. And, obviously taking that, taking such a, falling behind early top lane is not what you want to see, but also, level 100 Mafia boss is actually able to come up with a small CS lead of probably around 5 creeps after this wave will be found by JDL Beast. And I'm Bad You're Awful is actually looking for lane game, but no, just looking to help level 100 Mafia boss, pushing the wave quickly, ensuring that his Cassante is able to get a nice reset. But JDL Beast really doesn't want this wave to crash.
Yeah, he's fighting them with all he's got, and the amount of grass procs and the buckler trades he's been taking is definitely letting him actually just bonk Ivern into the wall. Cassandra is so far away, and yeah, this Poppy is a menace. She hurts so much. JDL Beast, I keep saying this, right? But him on Smolder, it was a really miserable experience for him just because he was playing against an Aurelia, and I think that's probably one of the hardest matchups in the game, for a character like Smolder. But the amount of pressure he's soaking up this game means that this Drake is going to go comfortably over to the side of UW Gold. And yeah, this is a little bit of a completely different dynamic for the side of U Waterloo.
Yeah, and the Iverns waste so much time balling trying to get the wave pushed in. But, the wave doesn't even actually get fully pushed in. Of course, the wave, JDL Beast did end up crashing the wave into level 100 Mafia boss's tower. But crucially, this gives, Warriors Gold, who should have a weaker early game 3v3, even the balling with the Seraphine versus the Zeri.
Oh yeah, and Onat is just going to collapse onto Supreme. The jump is able to be channeled. The charm is actually going to land onto Ivern. I wonder if Last Hand wants to convert. This flash is invested, but Poppy is right there to follow up. The grubs are going to be secure, but Onat wants a little bit more. Supreme doesn't have the jump unavailable, and with the charm following up with the dash, this is what you want to see from Waterloo. This was the form they were missing, the kind of coordination. But this time they managed to get full value of their topside prio to make sure that these grubs are theirs.
Yeah, Supreme caught sleeping, walking through river. I'm I guess not expecting that the Skarner would be there. Maybe thinking the Skarner would be invading CSU's bot side, or the Skarner would be farming top camps. But I think that's too big of a risk to take, because once again, as you see, if you're wrong, if the Skarner is waiting there to pin you into the wall with the Skarner, you do end up, they do end up forcing a flash out of you, and they get a kill, which is also what happened. And now, but now CSU looking to respond in the bot lane. Flash is burned, but the Leona follow up is there. Ignite comes through, but Ambo will walk out of this alive.
Yep, and that is the unfortunate reality of having a Seraphine ADC, is that you have good gank response because you have CC. But if the fight ends up going too long, then you kind of run out of damage in the early game. And Ando managed just to escape that fight while keeping his flash still up. Yuumi has to burn the sums, he has to burn the cleanse. But at the end of the day, considering what they got topside at the beginning, I don't think U Waterloo are going to be a little bit too unhappy about that, as JDL Beast continue the pressure up in top lane.
Yeah, and I think that cleanse, like obviously in this composition, Zeri always takes cleanse, but I think this just goes to show why Zeri would always takes cleanse into these types of compositions, because not only are you able to cleanse the initial CC, which was the Iron Q, like many people don't know that cleanse gives you 80% tenacity for 3 seconds after you use it. So even when the Leona's in position to land all of her CC spells onto you, and the Seraphine as well, the CC just doesn't last a very long time, and Ambo is able to walk out of that, even on the low base health. On a low base health carry like Zeri.
Yeah, and in the worst case, Yuumi can go like Mikhail's or something if you really need.
Then late game is even worse.
Yeah, exactly. If you really need to cleanse, and against CESU, like this, the Mikhail's might not be, the worst buy in the world. As this time, it's going to be Onat's turn to make the gank happen. Flash immediately pop. The ultimate is going to be thrown. But however, at the end of the day, this is a Seraphine, not too much damage. Onat is burning the Flash once again. They want more. Potato Soul flashes in forward, but he might have bitten off a little bit more he could do. He takes so much damage and is taken down. Now it's left-hand Kane, who's channeled the teleport at the beginning of that gang, landing another charm onto Supreme. They have one more charm of the Spirit Rush left. That means Onat is just going to go straight in. Is he going to throw the rock? Left-hand Kane want a little bit more. The Flash fade away. Q is clean. Waterloo get away with a clean 3-0, and that's 6-0 on the board. And it looks like level 100 Mafia Boss isn't having the most fun either.
Yeah, very well played by Warriors Gold. Forcing out the Seraphine ult early, and I was almost expecting Onat to then turn onto the Leona with the Leona and trying to impale him, but smartly realizing that the Ivern is coming down river, the impale wouldn't do much, and they especially wouldn't be able to kill the Leona with just the Zeri Yuumi next to him. He does flash early, ensuring that he stays as healthy as he keeps as much health as possible, and waits for Kane to be in position to respond, and then when Potato Soul wants to flash onto a cleanseless Zeri, Ambo, still having that flash from that last gank, is able to flash away from any upcoming damage, and they're able to get a return kill onto multiple members of CESU, and of course, left-hand Kane's obviously, hitting the charm onto the Tristana in the middle of the fight was amazing, but also, and it goes without saying, the Q flash was also great. And now, level 100 Mafia Boss looking to 1v1 JDL Beast, but JDL Beast using the ult is able to knock away the all-out Cassante, and he will be able to walk away with his life.
Yep, and that means that, with the Grubs coming up soon, Warriors are going to trying to acquire some prio. That means no all-out, I think, will be coming up for the Grub fight either, which I think at the end of the day is what you want on Cassante. That's what gives him 90% of value in these fights. So, and I think the crucial thing for last time also for CESU in that Grub fight was the fight started so early with Supreme getting caught out that Potato Soul was actually in the process of walking up, and then the fight just almost, and basically the skirmish ended before it even started. And that means for Ricky and Anbo, who basically just sat bot lane and just had to farm and was under negative pressure by Seraphine, that was, in a bit of double, like a double benefit they got. They got the Grubs, they got that prio topside, but, they got to free farm a little bit. And with a call, Zeri almost hitting 100 stacks now. He has 1 stack left. This is looking pretty smooth for Waterloo, and, CSU want to say no.
Yeah, CSU looking to contest this Dragon with Zeri and with 4 of their members in a 4v4. Level 100 Mafia Boss also coming down to make it a 5v4 while JDLB stays top lane. Leona goes in, Bomb is attached to the Zeri. Supreme jumps on the Zeri, he's able to kill the Zeri. Yuumi is detached, Yuumi will fall as well, and Onat is also caught out as well. Supreme looking to follow up onto left-hand Kane, flashes in, looking for the last auto attack onto left-hand Kane. Will he die? He will not.
Yeah, and Supreme again, this mid laner is keeping CSU alive in all these fights. It looks so dire for Waterloo. Sorry, for CSU at the beginning too. The Seraphine ult, goes between the goalposts. I think Onat lands a really good impale onto 2 members of CSU. It looks like the damage is coming out over top. But yes, that's a Tristana power, right? Supreme jumps in, pops Zeri. Killing a Zeri means you get a Yuumi. That's a 1+1 deal. And he takes down Onat. That means that's another death. That's a death for the Skarter, who, gets caught unaware as well. And yeah, that is the fight CSU need. The Dragon isn't taken by either team either, and for CSU want to slow the game down at this point, that is definitely a boon for them.
Yeah, and I think, taking that fight confidently up 3,000k gold needs to be commended. But now Supreme is caught top lane again, just like game 2.
Yeah, I mean, Supreme, he stepped up last fight, but this means He is 1-3, in 12, it's in 13 minutes, and I don't think Left Hand Kane is about to make that same mistake. Spirit Rush is almost coming up, so he wants to play a little bit more conservative while this is happening. And yeah, Onat is just hitting away at those grubs. I'm not sure if I'm Bad Your Worst will try to take this, I'm Bad Your Awful will try to take this Drake away. He's just going to do a little bit of counter jungling. But yeah, that Tristana getting caught means that's free grubs for Waterloo.
And not only does that mean, it denies the, not only is that a free grubs going over to the side of Waterloo, if anybody gets caught in this game, you don't want your Tristana to get caught.
Yes.
This Tristana is the focal point of this composition, just like how the Zeri is the focal of Waterloo's composition. But the difference is that the Zeri is, 2-1 with 120 CS, while this Tristana only has 100 farm and is 1-3. And I think you really do have to be concerned if you're CESU, because when you come to an early disadvantage that's already ballooned to almost 4,000 gold at 14 minutes, you really can't afford to lose any more members and make any more mistakes that put you further behind, because this Zeri is only going to get stronger, and we know that this Zeri Yumi combination is only going to outscale a Tristana Seraphine backline combination if you give them enough time, and I think CSU really need, once again, they're getting caught out this game might be the death of them, but of course the game's not over yet. CSU, they have their first items completed on their top side.
And speaking of not getting caught out, it looks like I'm Bad You're Awful didn't get the memo, as it's going to be the Ivern taken out. That's going to be kill over to Onat. Tristana managing to jump up. A level 100 Moscow boss has invested a teleport for maybe nothing, maybe even worse than nothing, as he's just consistently CC'd into the wall. That's going to be another kill over to Zeri. That is a 3-kill, 130 farm CS Zeri with a cull completed. And yeah, this is looking really, really good for Waterloo. Onat is going for another Potato Soul, has the summoners. He's not going to invest them just yet. The Impale actually connects onto Seraphine. That flash falls a little bit short, but Ambo is CC'd, so there's not going to be too much follow-up, any more action on the side of Waterloo. Notice what just happened mid, though. That's going to be mid-tier 1 taken down. That's going to be top-tier 1 taken down. And with the amount of pressure that Onat is exerting mid, it looks like bot-tier 1 might be going down too soon. But here comes left-hand Kane with the Spirit Rush. I think this fight was a little bit too extended on the side of CESU. Onat with another shutdown on and Potato Soul goes down to Ambo as well. The Spirit Rush keeps getting the reset. JDL Beast, he is everywhere. He's supposed to be the top laner. I just went down to my kitchen, opened the microwave. JDL Beast was there. I went to my bed. JDL Beast was hiding under the bed. This man is absolutely everywhere. He destroys his lane. He shows up. He contributes to all these fights. And oh my god, how many times do I have to say it? This guy was playing Smolder.
I mean, the members of Warriors Gold just keep showing up bot lane like pesky basement insects. Like with this overwhelming mid push that they managed to secure with their solo laners, they're just able to move left hand K bot, secure the kill onto Leona, and then they're able to, and then once again, and then JDL Beast comes back in, and just when you think the Ivern might be able to save his support, JDL Beast comes in, secures the kill onto the Ivern as well, and now Warriors already coming out to a 7,500 gold lead, only 16 minutes into the game, and this is exactly what you wanted to see from Warriors last game. Just very clean fights, taking good fights, not playing too overconfident, knowing what fights they're able to win, and then cleanly executing on those fights. And I think CSU, definitely like getting caught is one thing, but also I think Warriors are just playing a better brand of League of Legends. I think they're just assessing game states better than CESU is. They're getting better ganks off. And I think CSU, they're just less aware of where the members of Warriors Gold are. They're not tracking the members properly, and they're also getting caught out way too much. And I think, and that is the main reason why I think Warriors Gold have come out to such a dominating performance in this game 3.
Yeah, and look at the gold on the members of, especially on JDL Beast, who just ate the top tier 2 gold. He has almost 9,000 gold at this stage of the game. This Poppy is an absolute monster, and you can't count out the Zeri too. He still has over 8,000 gold. This is basically gold, although Warriors have gold, they're rich as hell across the board. This is all money on the right people. You want Zeri to be ahead just because obviously she's the carry of the game, but you want the Poppy to be able to exert the side lane pressure, to be able to overwhelm Cassante in the side lane, to be able to go to the fights earlier than him, right? And just the sheer amount of money Warriors have is a little bit ridiculous. We see that Zeri already has the 2-core, and Poppy just slamming Potato Soul into the wall is just a little bit of an insult. And yeah, this is going to be mid-tier 2 falling with the Rift Herald as well. Warriors are just choking out CESU from every angle, and they don't want to slow down.
Yeah, and it's amazing that JDL Beast has
a little bit of juke. Oh, but Herald goes down, and actually Cassante
flashing in, kidnapping the Skarner. Impale only hits Ryan Jigglypuff. The Skarner will fall. Seraphine ult hits too. The JDL Beast somehow goes over the wall, is able to flash out though. Left-hand Kane looking for something. Ambo is hitting, but
these are the kites of the century coming out for Ambo. I think left-hand Kane wanted to make a flash charm play, and that goes completely into left field, but now it's a Zeri Yuumi. This gives me deja vu to how that Vayne was last game. The complete cleanup from the damage dealers of UW Gold means that they're going to take down this turret. They're going to take down the inhibitor, and this is only 19 minutes. It's a 17-4 game, and we talked about how much gold JDL Beast had there, right? And we talked about how CESU kind of lagged damage. That was the fight that really showed well. I think JDL Beast just stood there for like a good 5 seconds, and everybody on CESU was just wailing on him, and he didn't go down.
Yeah, and I think that was as good of a fight you could realistically hope from CESU at that point in the game. Level 100 Mafia Boss, great engage onto the Skarner, flash ulting the Skarner, getting all out, also kidnapping the Skarner over the, bringing him into CESU's base, and the junglers just gonna run into each other in the jungle. And Ambo's flying over the wall, forces the flash out of the Ivern.
He wants blood, he wants more kills to the... More blood for the blood god as Ambo, trying to pick up another kill to add to his collection. That's going to be a 7-kill Zeri. That means I think that Infinity Edge will be online very, very soon. And once it hits that point, it might spell doom for the side of CESU. But Waterloo, looking to accelerate the game, they go straight onto the Baron. And nobody on CESU can contest this.
Yeah, that's a 3-item Poppy at 20 minutes, by the way. And that's about to be a 3-item Zeri at 21 minutes. And yeah, I think and it's hard to fault CESU for that last team fight that they had in their base. I think that was a really good angle from CESU, and even with being able to get JDL Beast to E over the wall, forcing his flash out, I do think CESU made the right play to try and go for more, because realistically, if they just settle for 1 kill, the game state doesn't really change. Nothing really changes. They do have to go for these more high-risk plays to try and flip the game in a more meaningful, radical way. But unfortunately, the gold lead is just too immense. Ambo just does too much damage when he's able to ramp up and free hit for so long. And once the front line of CESU falls, once the Cassante and Luna eventually falls to the RE and Zeri damage, the fight is just unplayable for CESU, and that's how. And it's just a very easy way. It's just a very easy ace on the side of Warriors Gold.
Yeah, and one thing I also wanted to mention this game that I don't think we've given him enough credit for, I think left-hand Kane. The amount of synchronization he has with Onat this game to make all those leads early. He doesn't have the crazy like 7-1 KD that Zeri does, but he has 10 assists, and that means that he's been doing so much in the early game to make sure that, the position, rags to riches, right? Like you hustle, you gotta hustle, you gotta come up from the bottom, and you can't forget who the real ones were that put you in this position. And for Warriors Gold, it is definitely left-hand Kane that managed to win all these early skirmishes, really proving the value of this RE player.
And honestly, if I'm Warriors Gold, I can just think to end here. I think Warriors Gold are looking for a triple inhibitor take to get the 2 super minions per wave. But honestly, if I'm Warriors Gold, I'm thinking that I can also end here because of how strong the gold lead is and how tanky this Poppy is and how little damage CESU has. I mean, that's 3 items on Poppy, and a 21 stack Mega Zari. I do think Warriors Gold should be looking to just end the game right here, right now.
Yeah, and the Potato Soul looks to make a little bit of play happen, but that's what happens when you're a solo Leona with no follow-up. The Impale is absolutely huge. However, the charm is going to land onto Zeri. Everybody on CES, you need to focus the Zeri down. Tristana jumps in over, and that's actually going to be a kill over to the side of CSU. Again, Supreme is the man that makes it happen. Gets the shutdown onto Zeri, gets the shutdown onto Yumi. And while Warriors won't end up with, the stomp out, the end the game moment they wanted right now with the Impale and everything, they still get 2 minutes down. And with the amount of minions they have, the Baron empowered minions, they are looking to make a triple inhibitor situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that fight was mostly carried by Potato Soul, landing the Leona ult onto the Zeri, onto the 500 move speed Zeri, which is not an easy thing to do. But Potato Soul still manages to hit the Zeri with no summoners, with the Leona ult, and that allows Ryan Jigglypuff to then chain CC into the Seraphine ult, into the empowered E, which then allows Supreme to jump onto the Zeri and one shot Ambo. And I think, but I think despite that, Warriors Gold's still very much in control in the game. They should be looking to just push in all 3 lanes with these 3 inhibitors, maybe even skipping the Dragon, and they might just look to end anyways because they, despite that shutdown onto the Zeri, they still have a commanding 14,000 gold lead. The Zeri is now back with an Infinity Edge. Now left-hand Kane has completed his Rabadons. JDLB somehow has another item. He has 4 items at 24 minutes. Although the main problem with this is now without Baron buff, they do have CESU does have a much easier time clearing these waves, but it is triple inhibitor. So there's 6 super minions in CESU's base right now.
The Poppy ult is invested just to fling, the riffraff out of the way. Cassante is jumping forward. The Exalt comes down. That's actually a huge Seraphine ult onto the front line of Waterloo, but you gotta remember the Zeri's alive. The Flash isn't even invested yet. And yeah, Warriors Gold look to stomp out this game in dominating fashion. Zeri is just going stylish. They're going crazy on the next fountain. The teleport invested 4 style points. And unlike the last game, which was a 45-something minute slugfest, Warriors Gold get the lead, never let go, and manage to stomp out the game, get the leads, get the Zeri ahead, get the Ahri ahead. The Poppy turned into a monster. Skarner was like lore accurate, like beast thing, and at the end of the day, right, Warriors played a lot more of a clean game than CSU at the end. They've managed to concentrate a lot more on these skirmishes, and at the end of the day, they're the team that's going to advance to playoffs over CSU, who still do have a chance.
Yeah, and I think, and I completely agree with you. I think the way Warriors Gold are able to hold on to these early game leads and minimize mistakes, take good fights, make good plays, and they 100% deserve this win. Games 1 and 3 were, overwhelmingly, one-sided victories on the side of Warriors Black. And while they did drop a game in Game 2, a fairly close or fairly extended, 45-minute banger to CESU, they still end up winning the best of 3.
Right.
Warriors obviously advanced to playoffs, and if you're CESU, I think you still have a lot of positives to take away from this series. I do think I think the biggest thing to mention is that just the individual excellence on, especially on their laners.
Right.
I think one unsung hero was also level 100 Mafia boss on the Cassante. He was consistently finding very good plays. Of course, he was getting solo killed a bit and getting caught a bit in Game 1 on ganks on the Cassante into JDLB's Snar. But I do think they have so much playmaking potential on their laners from Ryan Jigglypuff, from Supreme, from level 100 Mafia boss, and I think going into if you're the University of Calgary, going into the next series against the next elimination series to determine if they qualify for playoffs or they get knocked out of the CEN, they should be pretty confident. And I think overall the main points to work on is just overall coordination and definitely vision control. I think that's been a recurring issue and recurring theme in these games against Warriors Gold. And that's not to say that Warriors Gold isn't doing a good job at finding these picks and controlling vision around objectives, but that is that is something to work on if you're on the side of Calgary. And I think for Warriors, obviously it was a fairly clean victory in games 1 and 3, and I think points of improvement, in my opinion, will just always be not being too overconfident and not getting caught out in especially in the early game in the laning phase when you really shouldn't be getting caught out.
Yeah, and even if they lost game 2, I think Warriors definitely showed off the power of the amount of cookery they can pull off with the Cho'Gath. That Cho'Gath was really scary. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think level 100 Mafia was definitely one of the key factors in winning game 2 as well. That Cassante, infinitely tanky, managing to jump onto the into the front line, even into the back lines of some of the team fights. And being able to make so much space for his team definitely, kudos should be given to him for how he played, in all 3 games, to be fair. And I think, yeah, Supreme, he managed to catch out the monsters area a few times in that last game too. So I think definitely University of Calgary have more than a fighting chance going in to the final round of the group stage. But anyways, you have to remember, guys, that CEN is still going on. These were the group stage, the Swiss stage games. So please stay tuned. Saturday, Sunday, we have League of Legends, we have Valorant, we have Rocket League, and especially on Sunday we have the finals for both Valorant and League of Legends. So remember to stay tuned and cheer for your favorite university across Canada.
If we make it, we're still not. We might not make the finals, but we look forward to seeing you guys back here at twitch.tv/Esports on Sunday to support our teams in the finals.
Yeah, and that's been a great broadcast for us. My name is Jamin.
My name is Brian.
And we'll see you later.
Thank you.